Majestic turned 5 on a Wednesday, and I spent the whole day pretending I wasn't afraid of ordinary happiness. The kind with blue balloons tied to kitchen chairs. The kind with frosting on cabinet handles and wrapping paper spread across my living room floor. The kind where a little boy laughed so hard at his own joke that orange soda came out of his nose, and my best friend Becky nearly fell off the couch laughing with him. For most people, that was normal. For me, normal always felt like something I had to hold carefully before life noticed and snatched it away. "Quinn, you are staring at that child like he's about to grow wings," Becky said from the kitchen, licking icing off her thumb. I blinked and looked away from Majestic. He sat cross-legged near the coffee table, surrounded by toy trucks, coloring books, and one stuffed wolf Carol from next door had bought him. He had refused to let go of that wolf all afternoon. It was tucked under his arm while he studied the birthday card Carol had given him, like it held secrets only he could read. "I'm not staring," I said. "You are absolutely staring." Becky leaned her hip against the counter. "And before you lie, remember I have known you since you were wearing beads in your braids and crying because Marcus Jenkins called you bossy in 2nd grade. I was not crying because he called me bossy. I was crying because he broke my pencil. And you told the teacher he was emotionally unprepared for group activities." I tried not to smile, but Becky grinned like she had won something. Carol Freeman came through the back door without knocking, carrying a foil-covered pan in both hands. She was short, round in the middle, and wrapped in one of those flowered house dresses she wore like a uniform. The woman had been my neighbor for 4 years, and somehow she always knew when I needed food, prayer, or somebody to watch Majestic for 20 minutes while I remembered how to breathe. "I heard laughter," Carol said, "so I brought macaroni before y'all feed this baby nothing but cake and red dye." "Miss Carol," Majestic called, scrambling up. "I'm 5 now." "I know you are, sugar." She set the pan down and opened her arms. "Come here and let me look at you." He ran to her, curls bouncing, and she hugged him close. For a second, her smile softened into something I couldn't name. Sadness, maybe, or memory. Then Majestic pulled back and whispered, "Do you think the moon comes early on birthdays?" Carol's hands stilled on his shoulders. I looked over from the sink. "The moon?" Majestic nodded, serious as a judge. "I saw it before it got dark." Becky raised an eyebrow at me. I dried my hands on a towel and walked over to him. "Baby, you probably saw the sun behind a cloud." "No." He pressed one small hand to his chest. "It was the moon. It was looking at me." Children said strange things. I knew that. I worked pediatric shifts at St. Mercy twice a week, and I had heard kids explain fevers, nightmares, and upset stomachs in ways that could make a grown person sleep with a light on. Still, something about the way Majestic said it made the room feel quieter. I crouched in front of him and touched the back of my fingers to his forehead. Warm, but not feverish. "How do you feel?" I asked. He looked down at his arms. "My skin feels too tight." Becky stopped smiling. Carol's eyes moved to mine, quick and unreadable. I kept my voice calm because panic helped no one, especially not a child. "Too tight, how?" "Like," he made a face, trying hard to explain. "Like my bones want to stretch." A cold feeling moved through my stomach, but I smiled gently and brushed one curl from his forehead. "Maybe you're growing. 5-year-olds do a lot of that." "Am I still your baby if I get big?" The question hit me in a place I had never figured out how to protect. I cupped his face with both hands. "Majestic Monroe, you could get as tall as the ceiling, and you would still be my baby." His real last name wasn't Monroe, not by blood, but mine was the name on his school papers, his doctor forms, his library card, and every emergency contact sheet I had ever filled out, with my hand shaking just a little. My sister Maya had named him Majestic because she said no child of hers would walk through life believing he was small. When she died, the world called me his guardian, his foster mother, his aunt. But names on paper didn't get up at 3 in the morning for nightmares. They didn't clean vomit off cartoon sheets. They didn't memorize which dinosaur cup made apple juice taste better. I was his mother in every way that mattered. The party ended just after sunset. Becky helped me collect plates while Carol packed leftovers into containers I knew she expected me to return, but never actually cared about getting back. Majestic grew quieter as the house emptied. He stood near the front window, his little fingers curled around the curtain, staring at the darkening sky. "Mage?" I called softly. "Bath time." He didn't move. I came up behind him and placed my hands on his shoulders. His body trembled. Outside, the moon sat low and bright above the trees, rounder than it should have looked, almost silver-white against the deep blue sky. "I don't want it to see me," he whispered. I turned him gently toward me. "Then we'll close the curtains." His eyes lifted to mine. For one breath, I thought I saw silver flash through them. I froze. Then he blinked, and they were his eyes again. Sweet brown. Tired. Trusting. I swallowed down the fear rising in me and closed the curtains. Bath time was short. Pajamas took longer because he complained the fabric scratched, even though it was his favorite soft blue set with astronauts on it. I checked him again for fever. Nothing. His breathing was normal. No rash, no swelling, no signs of an allergic reaction. By 9 o'clock, I had him tucked into bed with his stuffed wolf under one arm and the blanket pulled to his chin. "Sing Mama Maya's song," he murmured. I sat on the edge of the bed and smoothed my hand over his curls. My sister used to sing when she was scared. Not because she had a pretty voice, though she did, but because singing gave fear somewhere to go. After she died, I sang the same song to Majestic, because it was one of the few pieces of her I could give him whole. "Moon, moon, watch him kindly," I sang under my breath. "Stars, stars, keep him near. Night may come, but love will find him. Mama's arms are always here." His lashes lowered. I waited until his breathing evened out before I stood. At the door, I looked back. For a moment, he seemed peaceful. I should have known better than to trust peace that easily. Downstairs, the house looked like a birthday storm had passed through it. I started with the kitchen, wiping blue frosting from the counter and stacking plastic cups. The dishwasher hummed. The old clock above the stove ticked too loudly. Outside wind pressed against the windows, making the curtains breathe in and out. I had just bent to pick up a ribbon from the floor when Majestic screamed. Not a bad dream scream, not a child startled awake scream. This was pain. My body moved before my mind did. I dropped the ribbon and ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time, my heart pounding so hard it blurred the edges of my vision. Majestic. His bedroom door was open. He was on the floor beside his bed, curled tight around himself. His little hands clawed at the rug. His back arched, and a sound came out of him that no child should have been able to make. I fell to my knees beside him. "Baby, look at me. Look at Mama." His eyes opened. Silver. Bright, shining silver. For one terrible second, I couldn't breathe. Then his body jerked. I had seen seizures. I had seen broken bones. I had held children down while doctors placed IVs and mothers cried into their hands. This was none of that. His bones shifted beneath his skin like something inside him was trying to get free. His pajamas tore along one shoulder. Dark fur pushed through. His fingers curled, shortening, changing. A sob ripped out of me, but I swallowed the rest because he was watching me. He was watching to see if I would run. I did not run. "Majestic," I whispered, even as my hands shook. "I'm here. I'm right here." His mouth opened, but the cry that came out became a whimper. His small body twisted once more, and then my son was gone from the shape I knew. In his place lay a black wolf pup, tangled in shredded astronaut pajamas. Tiny, trembling, silver-eyed. For several seconds, the whole world narrowed to the sound of his frightened breathing. I reached for him slowly. "Mage?" The pup flinched, then lifted his head. Those silver eyes found mine. My fear did not disappear, but something stronger rose over it. Love. Instinct. The same fierce certainty that had carried me through hospital forms, funeral arrangements, unpaid bills, and every lonely night when I thought I was not enough for him. I pulled the blanket from his bed and wrapped it around his shaking body. He made a broken sound and pushed his face against my chest. "That's it," I whispered, rocking him. "That's it, baby. I've got you." I sang because I didn't know what else to do. "Moon, moon, watch him kindly." The pup trembled harder. "Stars, stars, keep him near." His breathing slowed. "Night may come, but love will find him." A heavy knock struck the front door. I stopped singing. The pup went still in my arms. Another knock came, harder this time. Not frantic, not polite, certain. I held Majestic tighter and stood on legs that did not feel steady. I carried him downstairs, one careful step at a time, the blanket wrapped close around him. My phone was on the kitchen counter. The front door was only a few feet away. A shadow filled the frosted glass. "Quinn Monroe," a man's voice called from the other side. My blood turned cold. I had not told him my name. I shifted Majestic higher against my chest and moved to the door, leaving the chain locked. "Who are you?" Silence. Then, "Someone who can help the boy." My grip tightened. "You don't get near him until you tell me who you are." A pause. "My name is Isaac Blackwood." The name meant nothing to me, but Majestic whimpered against my chest like it meant something to him. I looked through the peephole. A man stood beneath my porch light, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair pushed back from a face too controlled to be comforting. His jaw was sharp, his mouth unsmiling, and his eyes glowed amber. Not reflected light, not a trick, glowed. I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Isaac Blackwood's gaze dropped from my face to the blanket in my arms. The hard control in his expression cracked, just enough for grief to show through. The wolf pup lifted his silver eyes. Isaac inhaled like the sight had wounded him. Then he looked at me and said, low and certain, "That child is my blood. That child is my blood." The words should have sounded impossible. They should have made me slam the door in his face and call the police, or Becky, or anybody who could tell me I had not just watched my son turn into a wolf in the middle of his bedroom floor, but Majestic was trembling against my chest, wrapped in his dinosaur blanket, silver eyes peeking out from the fold of fabric. And the man on my porch had eyes that glowed like fire caught behind glass. I kept one hand under Majestic's small body and the other against the door. The chain lock stretched between us, thin and useless, but it was something. "You need to explain that," I said, keeping my voice low. Slowly. Isaac Blackwood did not try to push his way inside. He stood still, hands open at his sides, as if he knew one sudden move would make me close the door and never open it again. "My younger brother's name was Elias Blackwood," he said. 5 years ago, he disappeared with a woman named Maya Monroe. My heart stopped for half a second. Maya. Hearing my sister's name from a stranger's mouth felt like someone had reached into my chest and touched a bruise I never let heal. "How do you know my sister?" Isaac's jaw tightened. "Because Elias loved her." "No." The word came out before I could soften it. Maya never mentioned an Elias. She was hiding. His gaze dropped to the trembling bundle in my arms. From my world. Maybe from mine. I didn't like the sadness in his voice. It made him harder to dismiss. "I need proof," I said. Isaac reached slowly into his jacket. I stiffened. He paused immediately. "A photograph. That's all." I watched every movement as he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up to the gap in the door. At first, all I saw was Maya, my baby sister, laughing at whoever had taken the picture. Her head was tilted back, her braids falling over one shoulder, her smile wide and careless, in a way I hadn't seen during the last months of her life. She stood beside a man with dark hair, and Isaac's same strong jaw, his arm wrapped around her waist like she was the only thing in the world worth holding. Around Maya's neck was the silver crescent necklace she had worn every day until she died. I knew that necklace. I buried her with it. My fingers tightened on the edge of the door. "Who is he?" "Elias," Isaac said quietly. "Majestic's father." The wolf pup in my arms gave a small whimper. His body jerked once, then again. I looked down, panic rising. "What's happening?" "He's shifting back." Isaac's voice sharpened, not with command, but urgency. "Keep him wrapped. Don't hold his limbs down. Just keep him warm and let his body finish." I hated that I listened, but I did. I backed away from the door, leaving it chained, and lowered myself onto the couch with Majestic in my lap. His little body trembled beneath the blanket. The fur seemed to pull back into him, his small bones reshaping while he cried into my shirt. I whispered through every terrible second, "I'm here. I've got you. Mama's here." Then he was my little boy again, curled naked beneath the blanket, damp with sweat and shaking so hard his teeth clicked together. His eyes were brown again. "Baby?" I touched his cheek. "Can you hear me?" Majestic blinked up at me. Tears gathered in his lashes. "Mama," he whispered, voice broken and small. "I dreamed about him." I didn't have to ask who. Isaac was still visible through the cracked door, standing like a shadow beneath the porch light. Majestic turned his face toward him. He was sad in the dream. Something moved across Isaac's expression. Grief, sharp and old. I pulled the blanket tighter around my son. "You are going to tell me the truth," I said to Isaac. "And if I feel like you're lying, this conversation is over. You have my word." "I don't know what your word is worth." His eyes met mine. "Then let me earn that." I looked at Majestic, then at the window behind the couch where the curtains hung still. My house had never felt so small. I closed the door long enough to slide the chain free, then opened it again and stepped back. Isaac entered slowly. He was bigger inside my house than he had seemed on the porch, too tall for my low ceilings, too broad for the narrow entryway. The air changed around him, charged and heavy, as if the room itself understood it was no longer dealing with an ordinary man. Still, he stopped just inside the door and did not come closer. "Majestic is a wolf," he said. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in me. I noticed. "A werewolf," he clarified. "Born, not bitten. His first shift should have happened with family near him, with a healer, with people who understood what his body needed." I looked down at Majestic, guilt cutting deep even though I had done nothing wrong. I didn't know. "I know," Isaac's voice gentled. "That is not your failure." That almost undid me. I blinked hard and held Majestic closer. "Why now?" "Most wolf children shift between 5 and 7. Alpha blood can come earlier, stronger." His gaze lingered on Majestic's face. "Silver eyes are rare." "How rare?" Isaac didn't answer fast enough. A sound came from the back of the house. Not the normal settling of old wood. Not the wind. A scrape. Isaac's head snapped toward the kitchen. Every muscle in his body went still. "What is it?" I whispered. His eyes burned brighter. "Get behind me." The kitchen window exploded inward. Glass burst across the floor as something massive crashed through the frame and slammed into the table. I screamed despite myself, twisting my body around Majestic as chairs toppled and wood cracked. A wolf stood in my kitchen. Not a pup, not a dog. A huge gray wolf with matted fur, yellowed teeth, and eyes fixed directly on the child in my arms. Isaac moved before I could think. 1 second he was near the door, the next he was between us and the animal, his body blocking my view of everything except claws scraping tile. "Bathroom," he said, voice no longer just human. "Now." I ran. Majestic clung to my neck as I carried him down the hall. Behind us, the house erupted. Snarls tore through the air. Something heavy hit the wall hard enough to shake framed pictures loose. I got us into the downstairs bathroom and locked the door with shaking fingers. It was too small, barely enough room for the two of us between the sink and the tub, but it had no window. I climbed into the bathtub with Majestic wrapped around me and pulled the shower curtain closed like it could protect us from monsters. "Mama," he whimpered. "Is it coming for me?" "No." I pressed my lips to his curls. "Listen to me, Major. Only me." The bathroom door shook. Claws raked against the wood. Majestic screamed and buried his face in my chest. I started singing because fear was trying to steal my voice, and I needed it back. "Moon, moon, watch him kindly." The door shook again. "Stars, stars, keep him near." A roar answered from the hallway, deep, furious, protective. The scratching stopped. Something crashed. Glass shattered. A body slammed into the bathroom door so hard the hinges groaned, and I wrapped myself tighter around Majestic, ready to use my own body as the last thing between him and whatever wanted him. Then came a final snarl, a sickening thud. Silence. Majestic sobbed quietly into my shirt. I did not move. A few moments later, knuckles tapped the bathroom door. Not pounding, not demanding. 2 gentle knocks. "Quinn," Isaac said from the other side. "It's dead." I swallowed. "Are you hurt?" A pause. "Not enough to matter." That wasn't what I asked. "No," he said after a second. "Not badly." I waited for another breath before unlocking the door. Isaac stood in the hall with his shirt torn at the shoulder, and blood darkening the fabric near his ribs. His eyes were still amber, his breathing controlled, but there was something wild beneath his skin that had not settled yet. Behind him, my house looked broken. The kitchen table was overturned. Glass glittered across the floor. A large wolf lay motionless near the back door, its body too real for denial. Majestic lifted his head from my shoulder and whispered, "Bad wolf." Isaac's expression hardened. "Rogue." I looked at him. "That thing came for my son." "Yes." "Why?" "Because his scent is no longer hidden." Hidden. The words sank into me, heavy and strange. Isaac stepped closer, then stopped when Majestic tightened his arms around my neck. He noticed. He respected it. "You cannot stay here," he said. "More will come." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him this was my house, my child, my life, and no stranger with glowing eyes had the right to walk in and tear it all open. But the broken window let cold air move through the hall, and the thing on my kitchen floor had not come for me. It had come for Majestic. I pressed my cheek to his hair and made the only choice a mother could make. "We'll go," I said. Isaac's shoulders eased, just slightly. "But hear me clearly." My voice did not rise, but it did not shake either. "He sleeps where I sleep. He eats what I give him. He cries. He comes to me. You want to protect him? Fine. But you do not erase me from doing it." Isaac held my gaze. Then he nodded once. "Agreed." "I mean it." "I know you do." I studied his face, searching for the lie. I found grief, control, fear, maybe, though he wore it differently than most people. But no mockery, no dismissal. "Pack a small bag," he said. "Only what he needs for tonight. My people will secure the house." My people. The words should have scared me more than they did. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe fear had only so much room before purpose took over. I carried Majestic upstairs, dressed him with hands that moved carefully despite the storm inside me, and packed his inhaler, favorite pajamas, the stuffed wolf, and the folder of papers I kept in the top drawer of my dresser. Birth certificate, guardianship documents, medical records, proof that I belonged to him, even if the world suddenly wanted to argue. When we came back downstairs, Isaac was outside near the back of the house. The dead wolf had been dragged onto the grass. I stepped into the porch with Majestic wrapped in my arms. Isaac crouched beside the body, his expression carved from stone. He pushed aside the wolf's fur near its shoulder. There, cut into the skin, was a symbol. A crooked crescent split by a dark line. Isaac went very still. "What is that?" I asked. He stood slowly, and when he looked at me, the amber in his eyes burned hotter than before. "Zayden Cross," he said. "He found the boy." By the time we left my house, the night no longer felt like night. It felt like a door had opened somewhere, and everything that had been waiting on the other side had stepped through. Isaac moved quickly, but not carelessly. That was the first thing I noticed once the first wave of terror settled into something colder and more useful. He gave orders to 2 men who arrived in black SUVs without sirens, without questions, and without looking at the dead wolf in my yard like it was the strangest thing they had ever seen. That scared me almost as much as the wolf had. Majestic was tucked against my chest, his face hidden in my neck, his small body limp with exhaustion. I had dressed him in sweatpants and a hoodie, but his fingers kept curling in the fabric of my shirt like he was afraid I might vanish if he loosened his grip. I knew the feeling. "Quinn," Isaac said from beside the open back door of a black SUV. "We need to move." I looked back at my house, the broken kitchen window, the porch light flickering over glass in the grass, the birthday balloons still tied to chairs inside, bright and ridiculous in a room that now smelled like blood and cold air. "My neighbor," I said. "Carol, she'll come over in the morning if she sees—" "One of my men will speak with her before sunrise," Isaac said. "No." I looked at him then. "I speak with Carol. She watches Majestic sometimes. She's family enough to worry." Isaac held my gaze for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Call her from the car. Keep it brief. Do not tell her where we're going." I almost asked why, but the answer was lying dead in my yard. I climbed into the SUV with Majestic in my lap. Isaac got in on the other side, leaving a careful space between us. He was close enough to reach us if danger came, but not close enough to make me feel trapped. I noticed that too. As the vehicle pulled away, I dialed Carol with shaking fingers. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep and something else I couldn't place. "Baby?" "Carol," I said, keeping my voice steady because Majestic stirred against me. "Something happened. Majestic and I are safe, but we had to leave the house for tonight." A pause stretched long enough to make my stomach tighten. Then she whispered, "It happened, didn't it?" Every part of me went still. "What did you say?" Isaac's head turned. Carol inhaled sharply. I said, "Is he hurt?" That was not what she had said. "No," I answered slowly. "He's scared, but he's not hurt." "Then you hold on to that baby," Carol said. Her voice trembled now. "You hear me, Quinn? Don't you let anybody tell you he ain't yours." My throat tightened. "I won't. I'll pray. You do that." But when I ended the call, I could still hear the words she had swallowed. It happened. The road climbed into the mountains for nearly an hour. City lights disappeared behind us, then street lights, then even the scattered porch lamps of rural houses. Pines crowded the road on both sides. Fog slid between the trunks like smoke, and the moon followed us through breaks in the clouds, bright enough to make Majestic whimper in his sleep. Isaac looked down at him. For the first time since he had arrived at my door, the hard lines of his face eased. "He will sleep deeply after the first shift," he said. "His body is trying to understand itself." "He's 5, I said. "His body should be trying to understand vegetables and why shoes go on the right feet." One corner of Isaac's mouth moved. Almost a smile. Almost. Then it was gone. "I am sorry." I looked out the window because I did not know what to do with an apology from a man who had brought more questions than answers. The SUV slowed in front of what looked like a wall of stone and trees. For a second, I saw nothing else. Then 2 iron gates appeared from the shadows, taller than my house, and marked with the same black ridge of mountains I had seen on Isaac's ring. The gates opened without anyone touching them. Black Ridge was not a house. It was an estate hidden in the bones of the mountain. A long drive curved through thick forest before the trees opened to reveal a wide stone lodge with warm lights glowing in tall windows. Smaller cabins spread beyond it, connected by paths and low lanterns. Farther back, I saw training fields, stables, and a dark line of woods that seemed to breathe. People stood outside waiting. No, not just people. Wolves. Some looked human, dressed in coats and boots, watching the SUV with alert eyes. Others stood in wolf form along the edge of the drive, silent and still. Every instinct I had told me to hold Majestic tighter. Isaac stepped out first. The whole place shifted around him, heads bowed, bodies straightened. Even the wolves lowered themselves slightly, not fully kneeling, but close enough that I understood without explanation. Alpha. He opened my door himself. Before I could move, a man strode down the lodge steps. He was lean, hard-eyed, and built like someone who slept with one ear open. His gaze went straight to Majestic in my arms. "This is him?" he asked. Isaac's voice cooled. "Grayson." The warning in that single word would have made most people take a step back. Grayson did not. His eyes flicked to me. And the human? I was tired, frightened, and standing in front of a mountain full of werewolves with my son in my arms. Still, I had manners left. Barely. "My name is Quinn Monroe," I said. "If you have a question about me, you can ask me." Grayson looked mildly surprised. Isaac did not. The beta's attention returned to Majestic. "With respect, Alpha, he should be taken to the healer immediately, alone. We don't know what kind of influence." "No," I said. Not loudly, just clearly. Grayson's jaw tightened. "You may not understand what he is. I understand he had a birthday party this afternoon and almost broke apart in my arms tonight." I held Majestic closer. "So unless your healer plans to examine him through a wall, I'm going with him." Something passed through the watching crowd. A ripple. Interest, maybe. Disapproval from some. Isaac looked at Grayson. "She stays with the child." Grayson's mouth flattened, but he bowed his head. "Yes, Alpha." Inside, the lodge smelled of cedar, smoke, and something wild beneath it all. I expected cold stone and weapons on the walls. There were some of those, yes, but there were also woven rugs, family photographs, children's boots lined near the door, and the low murmur of a living home. A woman waited near a set of double doors, her gray-streaked hair pulled back and a medical bag in hand. Her face softened when she saw Majestic. "I'm Sandra Vale," she said gently. "Pack healer." "May I look at him, Quinn?" she asked me. That alone made my shoulders loosen by an inch. "Yes," I said. "But he stays where he can see me." "Of course." Sandra led us into a warm room that looked half clinic, half nursery. There was an exam table, cabinets full of supplies, and a rocking chair near the fireplace. I sat there with Majestic in my lap while Sandra checked his pulse, his breathing, his eyes, his temperature. Majestic woke halfway through and immediately started crying. "Mama Quinn," he whimpered. "Am I sick?" I pressed my lips to his forehead. "No, baby. Your body just had a very big night." Sandra smiled softly. "That is exactly right. You did something very hard for the first time." Majestic looked at her with damp lashes. "I didn't mean to be a wolf." "I know, sweetheart." Sandra touched his hand. "Your wolf didn't mean to scare you either." He sniffed. "He's inside me?" "Yes, but he is part of you. Not a bad part, just a new part." Majestic leaned back against me, unsure but listening. Sandra looked at Isaac, then at me. "His first shift came early because his wolf is unusually strong. Alpha blood can do that, but this..." She hesitated. "This is more..." Isaac's expression sharpened. "More how?" Before Sandra could answer, the door opened. An older man stepped inside. He had Isaac's eyes, though dimmer, set in a face lined by age and worry. The room changed when he entered, not the way it had with Isaac, but with the weight of history. People made room for him without thinking. "Joseph," Isaac said. "Not now." But Joseph Blackwood was no longer looking at Isaac. He was looking at Majestic. My son lifted his head, and for one brief second his brown eyes flashed silver. Joseph stopped breathing. The fear on his face was quick, but I saw it. Not wonder, not joy, fear. I shifted Majestic closer. Why are you looking at him like that? Joseph's gaze moved to me, then away. Isaac stepped forward. Answer her. Joseph swallowed. Alpha? Answer, Isaac repeated, and the room seemed to bow under the command. Sandra folded her hands in front of her, silent and troubled. Joseph looked back at Majestic. Silver eyes have not been seen in a Blackwood child for generations. What does that mean? I asked. No one answered fast enough. My patience was tired of being tested. I have had a wolf through my kitchen window, a stranger at my door, and my child crying because he thinks turning into something he doesn't understand makes him bad. My voice stayed calm, but every word carried. So somebody needs to stop treating me like the fragile human in the room and tell me what my son is. Isaac's eyes stayed on Joseph. Now. Joseph drew in a slow breath. He is moonborn, he said. The word moved through the room like a warning. Majestic curled his fingers around mine. Mama, I'm here, I whispered, though my eyes never left Joseph. What is moonborn? I asked. Joseph looked older suddenly. A wolf born under the moon's direct claim. Silver-eyed, rare, powerful. The old texts say a moonborn child appears when the packs are standing at the edge of war. War. The word dropped into the warm room and stole every bit of comfort from it. I looked down at Majestic, at his little hand in mine, at the tear tracks on his cheeks, and the sticker from his birthday shirt still clinging to his sleeve. He was not a weapon. He was not a prophecy. He was a 5-year-old who hated broccoli, loved bedtime songs, and still asked me to check the closet for monsters. Only now the monsters were real. Isaac's voice was low and dangerous. Does Zayden know what he is? Joseph looked toward the dark window, where the mountain pressed close against the glass. If Zayden knows the boy is alive, he said, he will not stop until he has him. I slept for 43 minutes. Not all at once. A little in the rocking chair beside Majestic's bed, with my hand resting on his back, so I could feel him breathe. A little with my head against the wall, while Sandra moved quietly around the infirmary. A little sometime before dawn, when Isaac stood outside the door like a shadow and told me no one had crossed the outer boundary. By morning, my body felt like it belonged to somebody who had made poor decisions with furniture. Majestic woke up confused and hungry. That, more than anything, nearly broke me. He sat up in the infirmary bed wearing borrowed pajamas too big for him, his curls flattened on one side, and whispered, "Can I have pancakes?" Not am I a monster? Not is the bad wolf coming back? Pancakes. I blinked hard and smiled because children deserved adults who could hold themselves together for breakfast. If this mountain full of werewolves does not have pancakes, I said, I will be filing a formal complaint. Sandra laughed softly from the counter. We have pancakes. Majestic looked relieved. He ate 3 small ones with syrup and half a banana, while Sandra explained, in gentle pieces, that his body might feel sore for a few days. She told him if his wolf felt close, he should tell me or Isaac right away. Majestic listened seriously, nodding like she was giving him instructions for the kindergarten line leader. Isaac watched from the doorway. He had changed clothes, but there was still a bandage visible beneath the collar of his black shirt. He looked rested in the way mountains looked rested. Still dangerous, just quieter about it. When Majestic finished eating, Sandra took him to a small adjoining room with a rug, books, and wooden animal toys. He hesitated until I promised I would stay close. Only then did Isaac speak. The council has gathered. I looked at him. For what? His expression told me before his mouth did. For Majestic. The warmth from the pancakes seemed to leave the room. They're making decisions about him already? They will try. I folded the paper napkin in my hand once, then again. It gave my fingers something to do. And you were going to tell me before or after they decided my place in his life? Isaac's eyes held mine. That is why I'm here. I studied him for a moment. He did not look away. He did not soften the truth to make it easier to swallow. That mattered. All right, I said, standing. Give me 2 minutes. His gaze flicked to my borrowed sweater, leggings, and the sneakers Sandra had found for me. You do not have to face them tired. I have been tired since 2018. They'll get the regular version. This time, the corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. The council room sat in the heart of the lodge, behind carved double doors marked with symbols I did not understand. Inside, long windows overlooked the mountains, and a heavy table ran down the center of the room. Men and women stood around it instead of sitting, their bodies too still, their attention too sharp. Wolves pretending to be people. Or maybe people who had always been wolves. Grayson stood near Isaac's right side. Joseph stood at the far end, one hand resting on the back of a chair, his face drawn with a worry he had not bothered hiding since he saw Majestic's eyes. Every gaze turned to me. I felt the weight of being human in that room, like a coat someone else had thrown over my shoulders. Isaac did not announce me. He did not explain to me. He simply moved to the head of the table and said, "Quinn Monroe will hear what is said about the child." A woman with silver threaded through her dark braid frowned. "Alpha, with respect, this is pack business." "With respect," Isaac replied, voice flat enough to freeze water. The child slept with his hand wrapped around hers. Silence. Grayson's jaw worked once, but he said nothing. Joseph cleared his throat. "No one questions Miss Monroe's care." A dry laugh almost escaped me. I swallowed it because this was not the room for it. One of the men near the window spoke. "Care is not the issue. Law is. An orphaned alpha child belongs with his pack." "Majestic is not an object that belongs anywhere," I said. Several eyes narrowed. I kept my hands clasped in front of me. Calm hands, steady voice. That was what I had learned from years of frightened children and worse adults. The braided woman looked at me. "You do not understand what he is." "I understand he is 5. He is moonborn." "He is still 5, Grayson finally spoke. "Forgive me if I don't trust a human with the future of my pack." There it was. Plain. Honest. Almost refreshing. I looked at him, not unkindly. "You don't have to trust me today, but you will respect that I kept him alive before you even knew he existed." A ripple moved through the room. Grayson's eyes sharpened, but he did not interrupt. Joseph sighed. "Miss Monroe, old law exists for a reason. Alpha bloodlines have enemies. A human guardian cannot teach him our ways, cannot protect him from our politics, cannot prepare him for what he may become." Each word landed carefully, but they still landed. I thought of Maya in a hospital bed, fingers cold around mine. I thought of a baby placed in my arms, while grief still had its hands around my throat. I thought of first fevers, first steps, preschool forms, grocery budgets, and nights when Majestic cried for a mother he could not remember while I sat on the floor and held him until morning. "You can question my bloodline," I said. "You can question my strength, but do not question whether that child is loved. I was there for fevers, nightmares, first steps, first words, and every morning he woke up asking why his real mother never came back. Where were all of you?" No one answered. Not because they agreed, because there was no answer that would not shame them. I felt Isaac's gaze on me. Heavy, quiet. When he spoke, his voice filled the room without rising. "Majestic remains with Quinn." The man by the window stiffened. "Alpha, that is not a suggestion." Grayson turned his head toward Isaac. "And pack law?" "Pack law will not punish a woman for saving Blackwood blood when Blackwood blood failed to find him." Joseph flinched. I noticed. So did Isaac. Before anyone could respond, the doors opened. The room changed instantly. Every wolf inside went alert. Even Isaac became still in a way that made my skin prickle. A man entered as if he had been invited to dinner instead of walking into a room full of people who wanted him dead. He was handsome. That was the first dangerous thing about him. Not beautiful in a gentle way, but polished, deliberate. Dark blonde hair swept back, gray suit cut perfectly to his body. Smile soft enough to look harmless if you did not pay attention to his eyes. His eyes paid attention to everything. "Isaac," he said warmly, "I hope I am not interrupting." Isaac's expression did not move. Xaden. So this was him. Xaden Cross. The name moved through my mind with the image of the symbol carved into the dead rogue's skin. Grayson stepped forward. "You have no right to cross our threshold." Xaden lifted one hand, mild as Sunday morning. "I came under diplomatic right. Surely Black Ridge still honors old customs, or have grief and poor manners finally become policy?" No one laughed. Xaden's gaze drifted through the room and settled on me. The smile did not change, but I felt it sharpen. "And you must be the human caretaker." The word was soft. That made it worse. Isaac's eyes flashed amber. "Choose your next words carefully." Xaden looked amused. "I meant no insult. Humans are wonderfully sentimental creatures. They hold on tightly, even when nature has already corrected them." My stomach tightened, but I did not give him the satisfaction of stepping back. "Quinn Monroe," I said. "Not a caretaker." "Of course." He dipped his head slightly. "Miss Monroe." A small sound came from behind me. I turned. Majestic stood in the doorway that connected to Sandra's room, one hand clutching his stuffed wolf, his eyes wide and wet. Sandra was just behind him, concern on her face. He had heard. My heart sank. "Mage," I said softly. He ran to me. I crouched as he threw himself against me, arms wrapping around my neck with desperate strength. I held him close, one hand at the back of his head. "I'm here," I whispered. His body shuddered. Then the air changed. Every wolf in the room drew a breath at the same time. Majestic lifted his head from my shoulder. His eyes were silver. Not a flicker this time. Not a trick of fear. They glowed bright and steady, filling that old room with something older than all their laws. He pressed closer to me, little fingers digging into my sweater. "My mama," he said. The words were small. The power behind them was not. Grayson lowered his eyes first, then the braided woman, then two men by the window. One by one, every wolf in that room reacted to something I could not feel but knew was happening. Recognition, submission, truth. Even Joseph bowed his head. Isaac did not bow. He stood beside us, face carved with wonder and grief, as if my son had just given him both a gift and a warning. Xaden watched it all. His smile never left. But for the first time, I saw hunger beneath it. He stepped closer, stopping just far enough away that Isaac would have no reason to put him through the wall. "Beautiful," Xaden murmured. "No wonder everyone is so nervous." I stood slowly with Majestic in my arms. Xaden's eyes met mine, smooth and bright and empty of kindness. "Careful, Miss Monroe," he said softly. "Wolves have a way of eating what humans love."
Xaden Cross left Black Ridge alive because old law had teeth, and I had spent my life teaching my pack that strength was not the same thing as appetite. Still, every instinct in me wanted to drag him back through the council room doors and break the diplomatic right over his bones. He had looked at Quinn when he made his threat. Not at me, not at Grayson. At Quinn, standing with my brother's son in her arms. That told me enough. Xaden understood what half my own council was still too stubborn to accept. Majestic's strongest tie was not blood. It was the woman he clung to when fear took over his body. The woman whose voice steadied him when his wolf rose. The woman who had stood in a room full of predators and spoken without shaking. Quinn Monroe was not a weakness. She was the first wall between the boy and the world. By afternoon, I had doubled the patrols, closed the southern road, and sent 3 scouts to follow Xaden's scent until it vanished beyond the treaty line. Grayson argued for harsher action. Joseph argued for caution. Sandra argued that a 5-year-old child needed routine before the adults buried him under prophecy. Sandra won. So I took Majestic to the training lawn behind the lodge. The grass was soft there, bordered by pines, and shielded from the main compound by a low stone wall. Young wolves learned control in that yard. First shifts, first commands, first lessons in keeping claws inside skin when anger or fear pressed too hard. Majestic stood in the middle of it, wearing a borrowed sweatshirt, his stuffed wolf tucked under one arm, and suspicion written across his small face. Quinn stood 10 feet away, close enough that he could reach her, far enough that she was letting me try. That mattered more than she knew. "I don't want to be a wolf again," Majestic said. His voice was small, but he did not look away from me. Elias had been like that as a boy, afraid sometimes, reckless often, but never a coward. I lowered myself to one knee in front of him. Behind me, I heard Grayson shift his weight near the porch. He did not approve of an alpha kneeling in front of anyone. I ignored him. A child did not need my dominance. He needed my patience. "Your wolf is not bad," I said. Majestic's fingers tightened around the toy. He scared Mama. I glanced at Quinn. Her expression softened, but she did not rush in to rescue him from the feeling. She let him speak it. "He scared both of you because no one taught him what to do," I said. "That is not your fault, and it is not his." Majestic looked uncertain. "He lives in my tummy?" "Not exactly." I rested my hand over my chest. "He lives where your brave parts live, where your angry parts live, where your love lives. He is part of you." He considered that with seriousness only children could give impossible things. "Does he like pancakes?" A sound came from Quinn. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. My mouth wanted to smile. I allowed half of one. "Most wolves like pancakes." Majestic relaxed by a fraction. "First lesson," I said. "Breathing." "I already know breathing." "Then you are ahead of most grown men I know." This time Quinn did smile. It moved through me with more force than it should have. I turned my attention back to the boy before my wolf noticed too much. When your skin feels tight, when your wolf feels close, you breathe before you panic. In through your nose. Slow. Like you are smelling. I looked around. Pine trees. Majestic took a dramatic sniff. "Good. Now out through your mouth. Like hot soup." He blew hard enough to puff his cheeks. Quinn covered her mouth, eyes warm. We did it again. And again. Each breath loosened the fear in his shoulders. After a few minutes, I held out my hand, palm up. "You may touch me if you want," I said. "You do not have to." Majestic looked at Quinn. She nodded once. "Your choice, baby." My wolf went still at that. Not because she had allowed it, because she had given the child permission to own his yes and his no. Majestic placed his little hand in mine. His fingers were warm, sticky from some snack Sandra had given him, and impossibly small against my palm. These hands of mine had broken jaws, carried bodies from battlefields, signed death orders, and held my dying father's ring while I swore to protect the pack. None of that had prepared me for the trust of a frightened child. "Close your eyes," I said. He did. "Find your wolf. Do not pull him. Do not push him away. Just let him know you hear him." His brow wrinkled. The air shifted. Quinn straightened. Silver flashed beneath Majestic's lashes. His nails sharpened slightly against my skin. Grayson took one step forward. I lifted my free hand without looking back, and he stopped. Majestic whimpered. "I can't." "Yes, you can." I kept my voice low. "Breathe." His small chest hitched. "Pine trees," I reminded him. He sucked in air. "Hot soup." He blew it out. The silver in his eyes brightened, then faded. His nails softened. His little body swayed, exhausted but whole. Then he let go of me and ran straight to Quinn. She caught him without hesitation, lowering to the grass as he climbed into her lap. Her arms went around him, firm and sure, and she pressed her cheek to his curls. "You did so good," she whispered. "So good, Madge." He looked over his shoulder at me. "Did I win?" I stood slowly. "You did." His tired smile was a blade between my ribs. Elias should have been here. The thought came sharp enough to steal breath. My brother should have been the one kneeling in the grass. He should have been the one laughing when his son asked if wolves liked pancakes. He should have known the shape of that smile, the sound of that voice, the weight of that little hand. Instead, Elias was ash and memory. And I was all that remained of his blood. Later, after Sandra took Majestic inside for a nap, I found Quinn on the back terrace overlooking the training lawn. She had changed into one of Sandra's soft sweaters, deep green against her brown skin, her curls pulled loosely away from her face. She looked tired. Not broken, just tired in the way people looked when life kept asking them to carry more than two hands were made for. "You were good with him," she said. I stood beside her, leaving space between us. He is easy to be good to. That has not been everyone's opinion today. No. I looked toward the tree line. It should have been. For a while, we listened to the wind move through the pines. Then she said, "Tell me about Elias." I had commanded armies of wolves with less effort than it took to breathe after that. Quinn did not push. She waited. That was worse, somehow. "Elias was my younger brother," I said. 6 years between us. He smiled more than I did, broke rules more than I did, somehow got forgiven faster than anyone else would have. Her mouth softened. Maya liked people like that. They met outside our territory. I do not know all the details. By the time I learned about her, Elias was already in love. I looked down at my hands. My father did not approve. Because she was human. Yes. The word tasted like shame. Quinn's gaze stayed on the mountains, but I felt the change in her, the careful closing of a door. My father believed human mates made alpha bloodlines vulnerable, I said. He believed love was acceptable only when it strengthened the pack on paper. And you? I was away dealing with border raids when the worst of it happened. When I came back, Elias was gone. My father said he had chosen exile. Did you look for him? Yes. She turned to me then. I searched for months, I said. Cities, hospitals, safe houses, places wolves go when they do not want to be found. I found traces. Never enough. Then there was a fire outside of St. Croix. A cabin burned. 2 bodies inside. Quinn's breath caught. They were never properly identified, I continued, but Elias's ring was there. Maya's name appeared in a report later. I believed. My voice hardened, because grief had no right to shake it now. I believed they were dead. All of them. Including the baby. Especially the baby. Quinn wrapped her arms around herself. Maya never told me. She may have been trying to protect you. She was my little sister. Protection went the other direction. I understood that too well. I am sorry, I said. She looked at me for a long moment, searching for something. That's the second time you've said that like you actually mean it. I do. I want to believe you. But you don't. I don't know. Her honesty was quiet, and somehow sharper for it. Your family rejected my sister. Your pack has laws ready to take my son. And you, she looked away, you keep saving us, which makes it harder to keep you in the box I put you in. What box? The dangerous man who came to take my child. I accepted that, because I had earned it by arriving at her door with too much power and not enough answers. I did come for my brother's son, I said. I did not expect to find the woman who had already saved him. Her eyes met mine. Something passed between us then. Not trust. Not yet. But the first fragile thing trust grows from. That night, Majestic screamed again. I heard it from the hallway outside their rooms, a sharp cry that tore through the lodge and pulled my wolf to the surface. I reached their door in seconds. It was cracked open. I could have entered. Every alpha instinct in me demanded it. Instead, I knocked once against the frame. "Quinn!" Inside, Majestic sobbed. Quinn's voice came soft and steady, but fear threaded through it. "Come in!" Only then did I step inside. Majestic sat in the middle of the bed, blankets twisted around his legs, silver flickering in his eyes. Quinn knelt in front of him, both hands on his shoulders. "Bad man," Majestic cried. He was smiling. He said the moon wanted me. "Zayden." My wolf snarled. I forced it down. I crossed the room slowly and crouched beside the bed. "Majestic, listen to your mother's voice." He shook his head. "I can hear him." Quinn looked at me. I kept my tone level. "Put your hand over his heart." She did. "Breathe with him, same as today." Quinn nodded, then leaned closer to Majestic. "Pine trees, baby." He sobbed in a breath. "Hot soup," she whispered. He blew it out unevenly. Again. Then again. I added my voice beneath hers, not commanding, only guiding. "Your wolf is yours. No one else's. Not the man in the dream. Not mine. Yours." Majestic looked at me through wet lashes. Did my daddy have a wolf? The room went quiet. "Yes," I said. "A brave one." Was he scared? I thought of Elias at 12, laughing before his first shift with fear hidden in his grin. Elias at 24, standing up to our father for the woman he loved. "Yes," I said, but he breathed through it. Majestic leaned into Quinn's hand, exhausted. "Mama sings." Quinn began the lullaby, soft enough that the words barely reached me. "Moon, moon, watch him kindly." Majestic's eyes faded back to brown before the second line. When he finally slept, Quinn eased from the bed and followed me into the hallway, closing the door halfway behind her. "Thank you," she whispered. "He trusts you," I said. He listened to both of us. That should not have affected me. It did. The hallway was dim, lit only by the low amber lamps along the wall. She stood close enough that I could feel the warmth of her, smell the faint vanilla of her hair products beneath the sharper scents of fear, exhaustion, and fierce maternal love. My hand lifted before I allowed it, not to grab, not to claim, just to touch. I stopped myself with inches between us. Quinn's eyes dropped to my hand, then rose to my face. "Why did you stop?" "Because my wolf wanted too much. Because she had lost too much. Because wanting a woman did not give me the right to become one more force pushing into her life. Because you have had enough taken from you," I said. Her lips parted slightly. For one dangerous second, I thought she might close the distance herself. Then Majestic stirred behind the door, and the moment loosened. I stepped back. "Good night, Quinn." I turned before my control could thin any further and walked down the hall, every muscle locked against the pull dragging me back to her. Inside me, my wolf rose from the dark. One word moved through my bones, certain and undeniable. Mate.
Leaving Majestic at Black Ridge felt wrong in every place a feeling could live. Sandra promised he would stay in the infirmary playroom with her until we returned. Isaac promised 2 guards would be posted outside the door and another 3 around the lodge. Majestic promised he would be brave if I brought back his dinosaur pajamas and the blue cup with the bite marks on the rim. That last promise was the one that nearly undid me. I crouched in front of him and fixed the hood of his sweatshirt. "You listen to Miss Sandra. If you get scared, you tell her. If your wolf feels close, you breathe." "Pine trees," he whispered, "and hot soup." He nodded seriously, then wrapped both arms around my neck. I held him a little too long. Behind me, Grayson cleared his throat. "We should move before traffic thickens." I looked over my shoulder. "Traffic? In Black Ridge?" "In town," he said. "Right, because the Werewolf Mountain commute is my biggest concern today." Sandra hid a smile. Grayson did not. Isaac stood near the door, silent and watchful. He had not tried to talk me out of going, though I knew every part of him wanted to. That restraint mattered. I hated that it mattered. "I'll bring your cup," I told Majestic. "And my space blanket. And your space blanket. And Mr. Rory." I already packed Mr. Rory in my mind. He leaned back, satisfied enough to release me. That was how I left my child in a house full of wolves. With promises about pajamas. Becky was waiting at my house when we pulled up, one hand on her hip and the other clutching a baseball bat like she had been born holding it. The broken kitchen window was boarded from the outside. The grass had been cleaned. The blood was gone. Somehow that made it worse. A normal house pretending it had not seen monsters. Becky's eyes went from me to Grayson, then back again. "Quinn," she said carefully, "why is your security escort built like a parole violation?" Grayson stared at her. I sighed. "Bex, this is Grayson. Grayson, this is Becky. Please do not growl at her. She bites back." "I do not growl," Grayson said. Becky lifted a brow. That sounded suspiciously like something a man who growls would say. For one blessed second, life almost felt normal. Then Becky hugged me. Hard. I closed my eyes and let myself have it. "You should have called me sooner," she whispered. "I know." "No, you don't. You do that thing where you decide being alone is nobler than inconveniencing people who love you." I pulled back. "Are we doing emotional accountability in the driveway? We can do it in the kitchen if the wolf bouncer allows." Grayson looked at me. "Does she know?" "She knows enough to be here with a bat." "Girl," Becky said, "I watched your son turn into a puppy with moon eyes at his birthday party. I am past enough." Inside, my house smelled faintly of bleach, plywood, and old cake. We moved quickly. Becky packed clothes from Majestic's room while I collected documents from the filing box under my bed. Birth certificate, foster placement papers, medical records, Maya's old hospital folder. Grayson searched the house twice, then went outside to check the perimeter. I found myself standing in Majestic's bedroom with one hand on his dresser. His bed was unmade. His birthday pajamas lay tangled on the floor where he had shifted out of them. A drawing sat on his little table, done in purple and black crayon. A big wolf, a little wolf, and a woman with curly hair holding the moon on a string. My throat tightened. Becky appeared behind me with a duffel bag. "You okay?" "No." "Fair." "I need his blue cup from the kitchen." "I'll get it." "No, keep packing. I know which cabinet." I should have waited for Grayson. That thought came to me halfway down the hall, quiet and sensible. Then the back door clicked shut. I stopped. The kitchen was empty except for the boarded window and the thin line of afternoon light across the floor. A man in a gray suit stood beside my sink, holding Majestic's blue cup in one elegant hand. Zayden Cross smiled like he had been invited. "Miss Monroe," he said, "you are difficult to catch alone." Fear moved through me fast and clean. I did not scream. Becky was upstairs. Grayson was outside. Zayden stood between me and the back door, but not the front. My phone was in the pocket of my cardigan. I slid my hand inside slowly, thumb finding the screen. Thank God for muscle memory and voice memos I used for grocery lists. "What do you want?" I asked. "Conversation." "Most people call." "Most people are not surrounded by Isaac Blackwood's guards." I pressed record. Then I took my hand out of my pocket and folded both arms loosely, as if I had done nothing at all. Zayden glanced at the ceiling. "Your friend is loud." "She's loyal." Loyalty is expensive. Humans often cannot afford it. You came here to insult my support system? I came to offer you a truth Isaac will not. There it was. Soft voice, clean suit, knife underneath. I looked at the cup in his hand. Put that down. His smile deepened, but he set it carefully on the counter. Your sister ran from Black Ridge, Quinn. Not from rogues, not from fate, from Isaac's family. I kept my face still. He watched for the wound. I did not give it to him. Elias Blackwood loved Maya, he continued. That much is true. But love did not save them. When Isaac's father called her a weakness and threatened to strip Elias of name, land, and protection, the great Blackwood line does not welcome human mothers. It buries them politely. My sister never mentioned Isaac. Would you have believed her if she had? Wolves, packs, ancient laws? He tilted his head. No, she hid because she knew what would happen if they found the child. And you're different? I am honest. That almost made me laugh. He stepped closer, not enough to touch me, just enough to make the air feel owned. Isaac will tell you he wants to protect the boy. I am at least honest enough to say I want to use him. My stomach turned cold. Zayden's eyes glinted. Majestic is moonborn. His blood can command packs. In the right hands, he can end generations of weak alphas pretending tradition is morality. He is 5. He is power wearing a child's face. My voice stayed quiet. You need to leave. I will, but first hear the offer. His gaze moved over my face with insulting gentleness. Give him to me before Isaac binds him to Black Ridge. Walk away. I will make sure you live. And if I say no, then you remain what you are. His smile softened. Something wolves love to threaten. A sound came from the front of the house. Grayson. Zayden's attention flickered. I raised my voice just enough. You forgot the cup. His eyes returned to mine, amused. Brave woman. No, I said. Tired mother. Grayson burst into the kitchen a breath later, claws already out, amber flashing in his eyes. Zayden was gone. Not through the door. Not through the window. Just gone, leaving behind the faint scent of cold rain and smoke. Grayson crossed the room in 2 strides. Did he touch you? No. Did he threaten you? Yes. Becky came running in with the baseball bat. Where is he? Gone, I said. Grayson looked murderous. What did he say? I pulled my phone from my pocket and stopped the recording. For the first time since I had met him, Grayson looked impressed. You recorded a rogue alpha? My mother raised me to be polite, I said, picking up Majestic's cup with hands that only shook a little. Not stupid. Back at Black Ridge, Isaac listened to Zayden's voice in absolute silence. The recording played on the council room table between us. Joseph stood beside the window. Grayson remained near the door, stiff with anger. Becky sat next to me because she had refused to wait anywhere else. When Zayden's offer ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Then Isaac looked at Joseph. Is it true? Joseph closed his eyes. That was enough to answer. My chest hurt in a way that felt too deep for breath. Isaac's voice lowered. Uncle. Joseph opened his eyes. Your father rejected her. Publicly first, privately worse. He told Elias if he stayed with Maya, he would be cut from the line. No protection, no name, no healer, no claim. I saw Maya in my mind, tired and frightened, holding a secret too large for her body. Did you know? I asked Isaac. He looked at me, and the grief there was not clean. It was old, jagged, newly bleeding. No, he said. Not all of it. Joseph's mouth tightened. Your father sent you north before the final judgment. By the time you returned, Elias had gone. And you let me believe he chose exile over asking for help, Isaac said. I thought I was protecting the pack. The room went very still. I stood carefully because if I moved too fast, All the hurt inside me might spill out as something I could not take back. My sister died running from people who thought love made her less worthy, I said. And now those same laws are circling her son. Isaac flinched, but he did not look away. Good. I needed him to hear it. I am sorry, he said. No defense, no explanation dressed up as an excuse. Just the words, rough and real. I nodded once because I could not do more yet. Then I walked out. Isaac followed me only as far as the terrace. He stopped several feet away, leaving the space between us untouched. The mountains were dark against the evening sky. I know apologies do not repair this, he said. They don't. I know trust does not survive on intention. No, I whispered. It survives on what people do after the truth hurts. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the one thing I did not expect. If you want to leave, I will protect you. His voice was low, steady, and devastatingly sincere, even from my own pack. Isaac's offer should have made things easier. It did not. I lay awake most of the night with Majestic tucked against my side, one small hand curled in the front of my shirt, like he was afraid I might disappear if he let go. If you want to leave, I will protect you, even from my own pack. Those words kept circling my mind, quiet and heavy. Isaac had the power to keep us at Black Ridge. He had the law, the bloodline, the wolves, the locked gates, and the kind of voice that made grown men lower their eyes. But he had given me a door. The problem was, I no longer knew if walking through it would save Majestic, or take him away from the only people who could teach him how to survive what he was. By morning, I had done what mothers do when the world is falling apart. I brushed Majestic's teeth. I found his dinosaur pajamas. I cut his pancakes into small pieces because he still preferred them that way, even though he liked to remind me he was 5 now. I smiled when he asked if his wolf had to go to time out for scaring everybody. No, I told him, smoothing a curl from his forehead. But if he starts eating couch cushions, we are having a serious conversation. Majestic considered that. What about socks? Also rude. He giggled, and for one brief second, everything inside me loosened. Then I saw Isaac through the infirmary windows. He stood outside with Grayson near the stone steps, speaking low. Isaac's face was controlled, his shoulders squared beneath a dark coat, but he looked like a man holding a storm still by force of will. He did not come in, not once. He sent Sandra with food. He sent a guard with fresh clothes for Majestic. He sent Becky a room after she declared she was not leaving until somebody normal was in the building. But Isaac did not knock on my door. He gave me space. That should not have mattered as much as it did. By late afternoon, my anger had burned down into something worse. Grief. Confusion. A sadness so old it felt like it had been waiting for me to finally have time to feel it. Maya had been afraid. My little sister, who used to steal my sweaters and swear she was only borrowing them, had carried a baby in secret because a world I never knew existed had decided she was not worthy of loving one of their sons. I wanted one clean person to blame. Joseph, maybe. Isaac's dead father. Packlaw. Isaac himself. But Isaac had not defended the cruelty. He had not hidden behind tradition. He had stood there, taken the truth, and apologized like a man who understood sorry was not enough, but offered it anyway. That was inconvenient. I was not in the mood for inconvenient decency. After dinner, Majestic fell asleep in the infirmary playroom with his cheek mashed against Mr. Rory and one sock missing. Sandra promised to stay with him. Becky sat in the armchair beside the little bed with the blanket over her knees and the baseball bat leaning within reach. I am watching both the child and the supernatural nonsense, Becky whispered. Go breathe before your forehead stays like that. My forehead is fine. Your forehead is writing a resignation letter. I kissed Majestic's temple, checked his breathing out of habit, and stepped into the hallway before I could talk myself out of leaving him. The lodge was quieter at night. The wolves moved differently after sunset, their voices lower, their bodies more alert. No one stopped me as I walked toward the back doors and out into the cold mountain air. I found Isaac at the training grounds. He was alone. No guards, no counsel, no alpha mask for anyone to admire or fear. Just Isaac, standing in the grass where he had taught Majestic how to breathe through his wolf. His coat was gone despite the chill, sleeves rolled to his forearms, hands loose at his sides. Moonlight touched the hard lines of his face and made his amber eyes look almost human until he turned toward me. "You should be sleeping," he said. I tried. My brain filed an appeal. The corner of his mouth moved slightly, but the almost smile did not last. I stopped a few feet away, wrapping my cardigan tighter around myself. "You've been avoiding me," I said. "I have been giving you room." "That sounds nicer." "It is also true." I looked over the empty lawn. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. No one does at first. No offense, but that is not comforting. No offense taken. For a while, neither of us spoke. Wind moved through the pines. Somewhere beyond the wall, a wolf howled, low and distant. Another answered. "I keep thinking about Maya," I said quietly. About how scared she must have been. About being alone. Isaac's jaw tightened. She should not have been. No, she shouldn't. I would have helped them if I had known. I looked at him then. Would you? His eyes met mine. No insult, no anger, just the weight of the question. "Yes," he said. "Even if it cost me my father's approval. Even if it cost me rank." I didn't want to believe him. It would have made things simpler. I rubbed my hands together, trying to warm my fingers. "Why does Majestic mean so much to you?" I asked. Not as Moonborn, not as an heir, as him. Isaac looked down at the grass. For the first time since I had met him, he seemed less like a mountain, and more like a man standing at the edge of something that still hurts. "Elias was my little brother," he said. "I was supposed to protect him. I was supposed to know when he needed me. Instead, he died believing he could not come home." My chest ached. "Majestic is not a second chance to fix Elias," I said gently. "I know." His voice was rough, but sometimes when the boy smiles, I see my brother. And for one breath, I forget Elias is gone. I swallowed, looking away before my face gave too much of me away. Isaac continued, quieter now. "I am afraid of losing him, because I have already failed that blood once. And I am afraid of wanting to keep him so badly that I become the kind of man who takes." That landed, because it was honest. "My fear is different," I said. "I'm afraid you'll become one more person who takes from me and leaves me to survive it. I do not want to be that." "I know," I breathed out slowly. "That's why I'm still here." His eyes lifted to mine. The air shifted between us. Not magic exactly. Or maybe I just did not have another name for it. "There is something else," Isaac said. My stomach tightened. "Please tell me it is not another prophecy." "No," he paused. "A bond." I went still. "Wolves have mates," he said carefully. "Not chosen by law, not arranged by council, recognized by the wolf." "Recognized how?" "My wolf knows yours. I don't have a wolf." "No," he said. "But you have a soul he recognizes." My pulse changed. "When did you know?" "The night Majestic had the nightmare. In the hallway." The almost kiss. The hand he stopped before touching me. I stared at him, every piece sliding into place at once. "You knew," I whispered, "and you said nothing." "Yes." "Why?" "Because you had already been given too many reasons not to trust me. If I told you my wolf saw you as mine, it could have felt like another claim, another law, another cage." The cold air caught in my throat. He stepped back once, giving me space even then. "You owe me nothing because of it. Not trust, not affection, not your body, not your future. If you choose me, Quinn, it will be because you choose me. Not because my wolf chose first." I looked at this man who could have used power, blood, law, fear, and even fate as weapons. Instead, he had held them back. That was when something inside me shifted. Not surrender. Choice. I stepped closer. "Quinn," he warned softly. "I heard you. I need you to be sure." "I have spent 5 years being sure for everybody else," I whispered. "Tonight, I want to be sure for myself." His breath left him like restraint had a sound. Still, he did not touch me. "If you tell me to stop," he said, voice low and rough, "I stop. No questions, no anger, no wounded pride." I lifted my hand and placed it over his heart. It beat hard beneath my palm. "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not telling you to stop." When Isaac kissed me, he did it slowly. Not like a man taking what he had waited for, but like a man grateful to be allowed near it. His hand settled at my waist, warm and careful, and for a moment the only sound in the world was the wind and the unsteady breath between us. Then I kissed him back. His control cracked, just enough for me to feel the hunger underneath. Not cruel, not careless. Hungry like he had been starving quietly for years and had forgotten what it meant to be fed. He took me to his rooms without rushing me. At the door, he stopped again, his hand on the frame. "Last chance," he said. I pulled out my phone, checked the message from Sandra that said Majestic was still sleeping, then looked back at him. "Open the door, Isaac." His room was warm, firelight low, the scent of cedar and smoke wrapped around everything. He kissed me again by the window, deeper this time, his hands sliding over my back, reverent against my brown skin when my sweater fell away. I caught his wrist when he hesitated. "Don't treat me like I might break." His eyes darkened and softened all at once. "Never. But I will treat you like you matter." And he did. Every touch asked before it took. Every kiss waited for my answer. He taught me with a patience that made my chest hurt, then warmed me with a hunger that made thinking impossible. Clothes slipped away. So did the armor I had been wearing for years. When we reached the bed, Isaac paused again, forehead resting against mine, breath uneven. "Quinn." "Yes," I whispered. That was all he needed. The rest was heat and trust, and the strange aching relief of not carrying the whole world alone. Isaac held me like I was precious, kissed me like I was necessary, and when I trembled beneath the weight of feeling wanted and safe at the same time, he gathered me closer instead of asking me to explain. Afterward, he did not turn away. He pulled me against his chest and held me there, one hand moving slowly over my back. His heartbeat steadied under my ear. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I let my eyes close without planning my next disaster. Then my phone rang. I jerked upright, reaching for it on the nightstand. Carol's name glowed on the screen. My stomach dropped before I even answered. "Carol?" Her voice came through tight and urgent. "Baby, listen to me. If Majestic is not claimed under the blood moon tomorrow, that pack won't be able to save him from what's coming." Carol Freeman arrived at Black Ridge before sunrise, wearing a flowered house dress under a wool coat, sensible black shoes, and the expression of a woman who had come to correct everybody's theology. 3 wolves escorted her into the main lodge. Carol ignored all 3. She carried a canvas church tote in one hand and a covered dish in the other. Becky stared at her from beside the fireplace. "Miss Carol, please tell me you brought sweet potato biscuits and an explanation." "I brought both." Carol set the dish on the nearest table. "But the biscuits can wait. The child cannot." Isaac stood beside me, fully dressed, fully armed, and so still he looked carved from shadow. He had not asked questions when I ended the call. He had simply risen, pressed one careful kiss to my forehead, and started giving orders before I could put my sweater back on. Now his eyes were fixed on Carol. "You crossed my wards," he said. Carol gave him a pleasant smile. "Baby, your wards are young enough to still think volume means authority." Grayson's brows pulled together. Becky leaned toward me. Did she just call the werewolf security system immature? I think so. Carol looked at me then, and the humor faded from her face. Quinn. Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. Not fear, exactly. Recognition. I wrapped my arms around myself and stood straighter. You knew, I said. Carol's lined face softened. Yes, baby. How long? Since before you brought him home. The room went quiet. For 5 years, Carol had sat at my kitchen table drinking tea from chipped mugs. She had watched Majestic when I worked late. She had brought soup when he had the flu and prayed over doorways when thunderstorms scared him. And all that time, she had known. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed calm. I need you to tell me everything. Carol reached into her tote and pulled out a small broken crescent charm. It was no bigger than my thumbnail, silver blue and cracked straight down the middle. I knew it. Maya had left it pinned inside Majestic's baby blanket. I had kept it in his memory box after the pin broke when he was 2. Only it had never been broken like that. Maya came to me in the rain, Carol said. She had Majestic wrapped against her chest. Elias was gone by then, or near enough that she knew he wouldn't be coming back. She was scared, Quinn. Not of motherhood, not of loving that baby. She was scared of what the wolf world would do if it scented him. Isaac's jaw tightened. Carol glanced at him, and she had reason to be. He did not argue. Good. Carol turned the cracked charm in her fingers. She begged me to hide him, begged me to watch over you if she couldn't. So I placed moonshadow over his scent. Every birthday, every fever, every time I stood at your stove stirring something I claimed was just good for the immune system, I strengthened it. Becky's mouth fell open. You mean those were not regular prayers? Carol gave her a look. Baby, I have been praying over that child since before he had teeth. You thought those were regular prayers? Despite everything, a laugh tried to rise in me. It did not make it out. You let me believe I was imagining things, I said softly. The nightmares, the moon, the way animals acted around him. I let you raise him without terror as long as I could. Carol's voice trembled just once. I am sorry for the cost of that. I wanted to be angry. A part of me was. But another part remembered Carol sitting beside me the night Majestic's fever hit 104, whispering scripture and something older while I cried into a dish towel. Remembered her bringing groceries when my paycheck stretched thin. Remembered her loving him in all the quiet ways that did not ask for credit. So I nodded. Not forgiveness yet, but understanding. Isaac stepped forward. The charm is broken. Yes, Carol said. First shift burned through borrowed protection. Zayden can scent him clearly now, so can every bloodline hungry enough to try. My hands curled at my sides. Then what do we do? Carol looked toward the windows, where the morning sky had begun to lighten behind the mountains. Tonight is the blood moon. Before it passes, Quinn must take the mother's oath. Joseph, who had been silent near the door, went very still. Grayson looked at him. That law is real. Joseph's face had aged overnight. Older than pack law, Carol nodded. Blood can call a child, but the moon can witness who kept him alive. If Majestic's wolf chooses Quinn under the blood moon, no council can remove her claim. Not Blackwood, not Cross, not any old wolf with dusty rules and a loud opinion. Becky raised one hand. As the only other human in the room, I vote for the law that keeps my god-nephew with his mama. No one voted, Grayson said. I did. For once, Grayson did not answer. Isaac looked at me. It must be your choice. I met his eyes and felt the warmth of what had changed between us, even with fear pressing on every side. My choice was made 5 years ago, I said. I just didn't know the moon needed paperwork. Carol's smile was small and proud. Not paperwork, baby. Witness. By nightfall, the whole pack gathered in the old stone courtyard behind the lodge. The blood moon rose huge and red above the pines, staining the snow-tipped mountains, and the faces turned upward. Wolves stood in a wide circle around a black stone altar. On top of it rested a moonstone, smooth and round, glowing faintly from within. Majestic stood at my side in a sweater Sandra had chosen, his hand tucked in mine. He had been quiet since Carol explained the ceremony in words a 5-year-old could understand. "You do not have to choose who loves you," I had told him. "You just tell the moon where you feel safe." Now he looked up at me. "Will it hurt?" "No, baby." "Will I turn furry?" "Maybe a little." I smoothed my thumb over his knuckles. "But I will be right here." Isaac stood across from us, not beside me, not behind me, across. Letting everyone see this was not an alpha's order. It was my oath. A council elder stepped forward, his mouth tight. "A human cannot bind the moonborn heir." Another voice followed. "She will weaken him." I breathed in slowly. Pine trees, hot soup. Before I could speak, Joseph moved. The courtyard hushed. He walked to the altar with the weight of all his years on him, then turned to face the pack. "Once," Joseph said, "I believed law was the same as wisdom. I watched my brother reject Elias's mate because she was human. I told myself silence was loyalty. Elias ran. Maya died, hunted. Their child was hidden because our name, which should have meant safety, had become a threat." No one moved. Joseph's gaze swept over the gathered wolves. If this woman had not loved him, the moonborn heir would not be standing here tonight. Blood calls to blood, Alpha. But the moon also honors the hand that fed the child when blood was nowhere to be found. Isaac bowed his head once. Respect. Acceptance. Carol stepped to me with a thin silver blade. "Hand," she whispered. I gave it to her. The cut was small, a warm sting across my palm. Carol guided my hand over the moonstone, letting a few drops fall against its glowing surface. Then she began. "Before moon and witness, speak what is true." My voice did not shake. "I, Quinn Monroe, claim no crown through this child. I claim no power from his blood. I claim the nights I held him through fever, the mornings I fed him, the songs I sang when grief came looking for him. I claim the love that stayed." The moonstone brightened. Majestic's fingers tightened around mine. Carol's voice softened. "Child of blood and moon, where is your safety?" For one terrifying second, Majestic looked at Isaac. Isaac did not move toward him. He only lowered himself to one knee, amber eyes steady. "Your choice," Isaac said. Majestic looked at Joseph, then the council, then the pack. Finally, he stepped away from all of them and placed his small hand into my bleeding one. "This is my mama," he said. The courtyard exhaled. Moonlight poured over us, silver and warm, wrapping around my hand and his until the cut sealed beneath his palm. Something deep inside the earth answered. The wolves felt it. I saw it ripple through them, heads lowering, shoulders bending under a truth older than pride. Carol reached for the moonstone. "We seal." A howl split the night. The southern wall exploded inward. Rogue wolves poured through the smoke. Isaac moved faster than thought, shifting between one breath and the next into a massive black wolf. Grayson shoved Becky behind him as a rogue lunged from the left. Claws tore across his side before he drove the creature back. "Grayson!" Becky screamed. "I'm fine," he snapped, bleeding onto the stones. "You are absolutely not fine." Sandra grabbed Majestic, pulling him against her. "Quinn, now." Every instinct in me wanted to keep him in my arms, but love was not always holding tight. Sometimes it was trusting the safest hands. I kissed Majestic's hair and pushed him gently toward Sandra. "Go with her, baby. Mama, I'm right here." Then Zayden Cross stepped through the broken wall in a gray suit untouched by dust, smiling like he had arrived for dinner. "What a beautiful family moment," he said. I almost hate to interrupt. Isaac's wolf hit him like thunder. They crashed across the courtyard, alpha against alpha, teeth and claws and fury tearing through the circle. Carol began chanting, her hands raised as rogue wolves recoiled from a line of white fire burning across the stones. The altar shook. The moonstone rolled. I reached for it. Xaden broke away from Isaac just long enough to catch the stone in one hand. "No!" Carol cried. Xaden's eyes found mine across the chaos. His smile softened. Then he vanished into the smoke with the moonstone glowing between his fingers. His voice carried back through the night. "You have until sunrise. After that, the boy belongs to whoever has the stone."
The courtyard still smelled of smoke, blood and broken magic when I shifted back. My wolf wanted to chase Xaden through the trees until his throat was in my jaws. The alpha in me knew better. A stolen moonstone meant nothing if I left my wounded behind and returned to find the boy taken anyway. Majestic was crying against Quinn's chest. That sound cut deeper than any silver blade. Quinn knelt on the stone with him wrapped in her arms, one hand pressed to the back of his curls, her mouth close to his ear as she whispered to him through his breathing. "Pine trees," she said softly. Majestic hiccuped. "Hot soup." "That's right, baby. Again." Sandra hovered near them, blood on her sleeve that was not hers. Joseph stood by the ruined southern wall, face tight with shame and fury. Grayson had one hand pressed to his side while Becky argued with him in a low, furious voice. "You are bleeding through your shirt." I have had worse. And I have had enough of emotionally constipated men pretending blood loss is a personality trait. Grayson blinked at her. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated it. I turned to the nearest guards. "Double the inner perimeter. No one enters or leaves without my order. Get the injured to Sandra. Send runners to the East Ridge and the Creek Road." Xaden did not come alone. They moved immediately. Good. My pack still obeyed. Now I had to make sure they survived. Carol stood near the altar, staring at the empty place where the moonstone had been. Her church tote was torn, her gray-streaked hair half loose, and for the first time since I met her, the old witch looked afraid. "How long?" I asked. Her eyes lifted to mine. "Until sunrise, before his claim can root itself around the boy's wolf. Less if Xaden bleeds on the stone." Quinn looked up. There was no panic in her face. That worried me more than panic would have. Fear made humans run. Quinn's fear made her still. "I want Majestic moved to the northern safe room," I said. "Sandra, Becky, and 10 guards with him. Quinn, you go with—" "No." One word. Quiet. Final. Every wolf near us heard it. I looked at her. "Xaden wants you exposed. Xaden wants my son." "I know. Then do not call me his mother in front of your pack. Then treat me like a helpless guest when it is time to fight for him." The words struck clean. No shouting. No accusation thrown for the sake of wounding me. Just truth. Steady as her hands on the child we both loved. My first instinct rose hard and violent. Protect her. Remove her. Lock every door between Quinn and danger. Then I saw my father in that instinct. Not his face. His mistake. Protection without respect becomes a cage. I forced my hands to unclench. "You stand with me," I said. Quinn's shoulders eased by a fraction. "Thank you." I looked at Majestic. "You stay with Sandra and Becky. You listen to them. You do not follow my scent, Quinn's scent, or anyone else unless Sandra tells you." His silver eyes shimmered. "You're bringing back the shiny rock?" "Yes." Quinn kissed his forehead, and then we finished what we started. Carol closed her hand around the cracked charm she still carried. "The stone is moving toward the old chapel at Thorn Hollow, edge of your territory." Grayson straightened. "I'm coming." Becky pointed at his side. "You are leaking." "I can track." "You can track from a chair." He ignored her and looked at me. I should have ordered him to stay. Instead, I nodded. Do not slow me down. He bared his teeth. Never have. Becky muttered something about men and untreated childhood pride. We left before the moon reached its highest point. The forest beyond Black Ridge was old, dense, and unfriendly even to wolves. Frost silvered the low brush. The pines held their breath. Zayden's scent lay everywhere and nowhere. Cold rain, smoke, expensive cloth, and blood magic twisting into false trails meant to split us apart. Grayson crouched near a broken branch. 3 directions. Carol sniffed. 4 lies. Quinn stood just behind me, wrapped in a dark coat too thin for the mountain cold, watching the ground instead of the trees. What do you see? I asked. She glanced at me. You're asking me? Yes. A small, grim smile touched her mouth. Finally, somebody appreciates my talent for noticing when children lie about who broke a lamp. Carol made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. Quinn pointed toward the chapel visible through the trees. The front path is too obvious. Broken branches, deep prints, even that scrap of gray fabric on the briar. He wants you charging straight in. Grayson frowned. The strongest scent is at the front. Exactly. Quinn moved carefully to the right, stopping near a patch of crushed weeds by the chapel wall. But someone used that side door recently. The dirt is brushed smooth, like they tried to hide footprints after walking through. I followed her gaze. She was right. There, beneath wolfsbane ash and old leaves, a human eye had caught what my wolf's nose nearly missed. A wire gleamed across the chapel entrance. Silver, at throat height for a shifted wolf. Grayson's expression hardened. That would have opened me. Quinn looked at him. You're welcome. He gave her a short nod. Thank you. That mattered. I saw her receive it. We entered through the side. The chapel had been abandoned for decades, but old prayers still clung to the broken pews. Moonlight spilled through the cracked roof. At the front, on the ruined altar, the moonstone glowed red and silver. Waiting. Too easy. Do not touch it, Carol whispered. A click sounded beneath the floor. Quinn moved before I did, stepping back from a carved symbol hidden under dust. The wall opened. Silver flashed. I reached her first. I caught Quinn around the waist and turned, putting my body between hers and the blade. Pain tore through my side. Silver burned differently than steel. It did not cut and leave. It stayed, hissing through blood and bone like hatred given shape. Quinn's hands caught my arms. Isaac! I'm fine. Lie better. Grayson ripped the mechanism from the wall, while Carol threw blue fire across the altar. The trap screamed like something alive. Then the moonstone rolled free, clean and bright in Carol's hands. We have it, she said, but he needs shelter. I can walk, I growled. Quinn pressed her hand against the wound, and I can tell when a man is about to fall over. I hated that she was right. There was an old hunter's cabin half a mile west, built before my grandfather's time. Grayson and Carol took the moonstone ahead toward Black Ridge. I ordered it. Carol argued for 7 seconds, then obeyed because the oath needed the stone near the altar before sunrise. Quinn stayed with me. Of course she did. Inside the cabin, firelight licked over rough wooden walls, while Quinn cleaned the wound with steady nurse's hands and quiet fury. If you ever step in front of a cursed blade from me again, she said, I am going to be grateful and mad. I can live with that. You almost didn't. I caught her wrist gently, but you did. Her eyes lifted to mine. The bond between us stirred, hungry and warm beneath the pain. It had been there since the first moment my wolf recognized her, but now it reached for her with a force I could barely hold back. She noticed. Quinn always noticed. What aren't you saying? She asked. The mate mark can strengthen the bond. her hand stilled. I made myself continue before instinct could make the words too sharp. It would tie you to me and to the pack. It may help you feel Majestic more clearly because he chose you under the mother's oath. But I will not ask it of you because we are afraid. Fear is not consent. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't want to belong to you like something you own. The answer came from the deepest place in me. Then belong beside me. That is all I have ever wanted. Her breath trembled. Not from weakness, from the weight of choosing. Quinn touched the side of my face, her thumb brushing over my jaw. I love you, she whispered, and I am still myself. My wolf went utterly still. I had been called Alpha, Lord, Weapon, Monster. No title had ever undone me like that. Yes, I said, voice rough, you are. I kissed her carefully at first, giving her room to change her mind. She did not. She came closer, hands sliding into my hair, her mouth warm and certain beneath mine. When I marked her, it was not ownership. It was a vow. Her hand locked around mine. Her voice said my name. The bond opened between us like moonlight breaking through storm clouds. Quinn, bright and steady. The pack, distant and startled. Majestic, a small silver thread somewhere ahead of us. I held her afterward, my mark resting against her warm brown skin, and for one stolen breath, war did not get to touch us. Then the bond shuddered. Quinn went rigid in my arms. By the time we reached Black Ridge, the gates were open and the courtyard was full of wolves who would not meet my eyes. Sandra stood outside the infirmary, blood streaking her temple. Becky held Mr. Rory against her chest like she had forgotten it was a toy. My heart stopped. Where is he? Quinn asked. No one answered fast enough. Grayson stepped forward, rage and shame tearing through his voice. Zayden used the chapel to draw us out. A second group came through the old tunnels. Quinn pressed one hand to the mark at her shoulder, her eyes filled with silver light. Then I felt it too. A child's fear. Small, cold, far away. Quinn whispered, Majestic? Through the new bond, his voice came trembling into both of us. Mama, I'm in the dark.
Majestic's voice did not come through my ears. It came through my chest. Small, frightened, wrapped in darkness. Mama, I'm in the dark. For 1 second, the whole world narrowed to that single thread of fear. Then Isaac's hand closed around mine. Quinn, he said low and steady. Breathe. I had said those words to Majestic 100 times. Through fevers, nightmares, his first shift. Now Isaac gave them back to me, and somehow my lungs remembered what to do. Carol stepped close, her fingers warm around my wrist. Because he chose you before the moon, your love tied itself to his wolf. That bond is a road now, baby. Follow it. I closed my eyes. Stone, cold earth, wet roots, old blood soaked deep into rock. And beneath it all, Majestic. He's underground, I whispered. Somewhere old. Joseph's face tightened. The Blackwood ruins. Isaac turned toward him. Joseph looked as if the name itself hurt. Before the lodge, before the borders, the first Alpha King was crowned there. If Zayden wants to twist Moonborn blood into a claim over the packs, that is where he would go. Isaac's eyes burned gold. Then that is where we go. No one argued when I stepped forward. Not this time. Sandra packed a healer's satchel. Carol took the moonstone and wrapped it in red cloth. Grayson, still bandaged, picked up a blade Becky immediately glared at. You are not healed, she told him. I can stand. That was not the question. He looked at her for a long second. Then stay behind. Becky lifted Mr. Rory, Majestic's stuffed dinosaur, from the bench. He knows my voice, and he is not waking up alone without this. Try again. Grayson said nothing else. Smart man. We moved through the old tunnels beneath Black Ridge, following Joseph's memory and the silver thread pulling at my ribs. Isaac stayed near me, but he did not crowd me. Every few steps he looked at my face instead of the path, reading what the bond told me. Closer, darker, Majestic crying without making a sound. I pressed one hand over the mate mark at my shoulder and kept walking. The ruins rose out of the mountain like broken teeth. Black stone arches stood beneath the blood moon's last red light. Wolves circled the clearing, rogues with hungry eyes and old scars. At the center, beside a cracked crownstone, Zayden Cross stood with one hand resting on Majestic's shoulder. My baby looked so small. His curls were damp with sweat. His eyes glowed silver, but they were not clear. Fear clouded them, making his wolf press too close to the surface. Zayden smiled when he saw us. There she is, he said softly, the mother the moon chose. Isaac's growl shook the ground. Zayden's fingers tightened slightly on Majestic, not enough to hurt him badly, enough to remind us he could. Careful, Alpha, Zayden said. The boy is very sensitive tonight. I wanted to run to him. I did not. Motherhood had taught me many hard things. One of them was that panic could not drive when a child was afraid. Majestic, I called gently. Baby, look at me. His chin trembled. Mama? I'm here. Zayden leaned down near his ear. She cannot save you from what you are. Blood is louder than lullabies. No, I said. It isn't. His smile thinned. Then everything happened at once. Isaac shifted and launched himself at Zayden. Grayson met the first rogue from the left. Sandra dragged an injured wolf out of a snapping set of jaws. Becky swung a heavy iron lantern into a rogue's face with a sound I would remember later when I had room to be impressed. Carol raised the moonstone, and silver fire cut a circle through the dirt. But Zayden had planned for Isaac's fury. He sliced his own palm across the crownstone and spoke words that made the ruins shudder. Majestic screamed. His little body folded forward, then snapped back as his wolf surged under his skin. No! I shouted. Zayden's voice stayed soft. Show them, little king. Show them who they kneel to. Power burst from Majestic. Every wolf in the clearing staggered. Isaac's massive black wolf hit the ground hard, claws scraping stone as he fought the command. Grayson dropped to one knee. Rogues bowed with wide, terrified eyes. Majestic was crying now, silver gaze unfocused. He was not commanding them. Zayden was using his fear to do it. I stepped into the circle. Isaac snarled, struggling to rise. I looked at him once. Trust me. His wolf stilled. Zayden laughed under his breath. You brought no weapon. I brought what works. Then I sang. My voice shook at first, but I kept going. The same lullaby Maya used to hum when she braided my hair. The same one I sang over Majestic's crib. The one that got us through stomach bugs, thunder, grief, and that first night when my sister did not come home. Little moon, don't you cry. Stars are watching in the sky. Majestic's eyes flickered. Zayden's smile vanished. Stop! I kept walking. Close your eyes and count to 3. Home is where your heart can be. Mama, Majestic whimpered. That's right, baby. I knelt in front of him, close enough to touch, but waiting for him to choose. Pine trees. His lips trembled. Hot soup. Good. Again. Pine trees, he whispered. Hot soup. The silver in his eyes cleared. Zayden grabbed for him. Majestic turned. He was 5 years old, barefoot, terrified. Mine. And when he spoke, the mountain listened. Kneel. This time the command was his. Every wolf in the ruins dropped. Not from fear, from the truth. Zayden crashed to his knees with a snarl of disbelief. Isaac rose the moment Majestic looked at him, as if the child's heart knew exactly who was safe. He shifted back enough to seize Zayden by the throat and drive him against the crownstone. For Elias, Isaac said. Zayden bared bloody teeth. This is not over. Carol's silver fire wrapped around his wrists. "No, sweetheart, but you will be continuing it from a cell." Isaac did not kill him. That mattered. He chose justice where vengeance would have been easy. I pulled Majestic into my arms, and he clung to me so hard it hurt. "Mama, I tried to be brave." "You were brave," I whispered into his curls. "You came back to yourself. That is the bravest thing there is." By the time we returned to Black Ridge, dawn was waiting at the edge of the mountains. The whole pack gathered in the courtyard again. This time, no one objected when I stood beside the altar with Majestic's hand in mine and Isaac at our backs. Carol placed the moonstone in its rightful place. Its light rose soft and full. Joseph stepped forward, his voice carrying over the silent wolves. "By old moon law and Black Ridge witness, Majestic Monroe Blackwood is the blood of Elias, nephew of Alpha Isaac, moonborn heir of this pack," he looked at me, "and son of Quinn Monroe by heart-blood oath." Majestic squeezed my hand. The moonstone flared. Warmth spread through my palm into his, sealing what love had already known. No one could take him from me now. Later, when the courtyard filled with relieved voices and low, joyful howls, Isaac came to stand before me. He looked exhausted, wounded, and more open than I'd ever seen him. "Stay," he said. "Not as a guest, not as a temporary guardian. Stay as Majestic's mother, as my mate, as the woman I choose beside me." I looked at the pack, at Becky crying while pretending not to, at Grayson watching her like she confused him more than battle, at Sandra smiling through tired eyes, at Carol holding her church tote like she had not just bound a rogue alpha in Moonfire. Then I looked at Isaac. "I'll stay," I said, "but I do not disappear into your world. We build this family together." His mouth softened. Together. Majestic climbed into Isaac's lap before either of us could stop him. "Does this mean Uncle Isaac is my daddy now?" Isaac looked at me first, letting me answer. My heart squeezed so tightly it almost hurt. I brushed a curl away from Majestic's forehead. "It means you have more people loving you than you did yesterday." Majestic considered that, then nodded. "Okay, but I still want pancakes." The pack howled in celebration, and for the first time in 5 years, the sound did not scare me. It sounded like home. Much later, Carol sat at the kitchen table with the prophecies spread in front of her. Her smile had faded. "What is it?" I asked. Carol looked toward the dark mountains. Majestic was not the only child born under that moon. The mate bond shivered, and somewhere far beyond Black Ridge, in a place I could not name, another pair of silver eyes opened in the dark. The first thing I heard was Majestic breathing. Not crying, not screaming, just breathing. For a few seconds I stayed completely still and let that sound be enough. He was tucked against my side with one small hand twisted into my shirt, his curls pressed under my chin, his knees drawn up like he was trying to fit himself back into the shape of a much younger child. Mr. Rory was smashed between us, one felt dinosaur eye staring judgmentally at the ceiling. Outside the bedroom window, Black Ridge was waking wounded. I could hear it in the distant shuffle of boots over stone, the low murmur of wolves repairing what had been broken, the soft scrape of wood being dragged across the courtyard. Somewhere below, Sandra was giving orders in that calm healer voice of hers. Somewhere farther beneath the estate, Zayden Cross sat locked in a moonbound cell with Isaac's guards at the door and Carol's witchcraft burned into the walls. I hoped the cell was uncomfortable. I was working on being merciful. I had not yet promised to be impressive at it. I opened my eyes slowly. Isaac sat in the chair near the bed. Of course he did. His dark hair was disordered, his shirt was wrinkled, and there were shadows beneath his eyes deep enough to deserve their own zip code. A bandage disappeared beneath the side of his shirt where Silver had cut him the night before. He looked like a man who had fought a war, won it, and still did not trust victory enough to sleep. His amber gaze lifted to mine the moment I moved. "You should be resting," I whispered. "So should you." I have a 5-year-old attached to my ribs. I'm resting by force. His mouth softened, but the smile did not quite reach the grief still sitting behind his eyes. Majestic stirred against me. His fingers tightened in my shirt before his lashes lifted. For one peaceful heartbeat, he looked sleepy and sweet and confused. The same little boy who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares and steal all the covers like rent was due. Then he remembered. His silver eyes filled with tears. "Mama? I'm right here, baby." He sat up too fast, then grabbed for me like the room might take me away if he blinked. I pulled him into my lap and wrapped both arms around him. "I made them kneel," he whispered. Isaac went still in the chair. I felt his attention sharpen, but he did not move. He waited. "Good man, good alpha. Learning." Majestic's voice broke. "All the wolves, even Uncle Isaac. I told them to kneel and they did. Does that mean I'm bad?" My heart cracked so cleanly I almost heard it. "No." I kept my voice steady, because he needed a floor under him more than he needed my fear. "No, Majestic. Something bad was done around you. Zayden tried to use your fear. That does not make you bad." But the moon listened. The moon listens to lots of things. I brushed a curl away from his forehead. "It listened when you chose me too, remember?" His lower lip trembled. "That was different." "It was, because that choice came from love." Isaac rose then, slow and careful, not crowding us. He came to the side of the bed and lowered himself to one knee so Majestic did not have to look up at him. "Power does not decide who you are, Madge," Isaac said quietly. "What you do with it does." Majestic looked at him. "But I scared everybody." "You scared me because I love you." Isaac's jaw flexed once. "Not because I think you were wrong. I was afraid you were hurting." Majestic considered that with the exhausted seriousness only small children and ancient judges could manage. "Did I hurt you?" "No." "You fell down." Isaac's gaze flicked to me, and something tender passed through the mate bond between us. "I got back up." Majestic leaned his cheek against my chest. "I don't want to be a king." "Good," I said, "because I do not have the patience to raise royalty before breakfast." That earned me the smallest sniffle laugh. It was not much, it was everything. I kissed the top of his head. "Speaking of breakfast, I think this family needs pancakes." Isaac blinked. "Now?" "Yes, now. Trauma hates syrup, it's science." Majestic lifted his head. "Can I have chocolate chips?" "You survived a rogue alpha in ancient moon magic. I think we can negotiate chocolate chips." Isaac stood. "I'll have the kitchen prepare—" "No." I shifted Majestic carefully onto the mattress and pointed at Isaac. "You are going to sit somewhere and not bleed through your bandage. Becky and I will handle pancakes." "I can cook?" I stared at him. He held my gaze for 2 seconds, then wisely said nothing else. The kitchen at Black Ridge looked as if a pack of wolves had tried to mourn, heal, and panic in it all at once. There were bowls stacked everywhere, coffee abandoned in mugs, and enough meat on one counter to make me question whether anyone in this house understood breakfast. Becky stood in the middle of it wearing one of my sweaters, her hair tied up in a messy knot, and the expression of a woman who had discovered an unforgivable crime. "This estate," she announced, "has enough raw meat to feed a dinosaur, but apparently no decent syrup." Majestic, sitting on Isaac's lap at the long table, looked personally offended. "No syrup?" "I said decent syrup. There is a difference." Grayson appeared in the doorway with a bandage around his ribs and the stubborn posture of a man who thought healing was optional. Becky turned on him immediately. "Absolutely not." His brow lowered. I did not speak. "Your entire body is speaking nonsense." "I came for coffee. You came because you heard people moving and decided internal bleeding was lonely." Grayson looked at Isaac. "Alpha." Isaac lifted his mug. "I am not involved." "Coward," Grayson muttered. "A live coward," Becky snapped, guiding him toward a chair with 2 fingers pressed to his chest. "Sit." To my surprise, he sat. Majestic watched this with wide eyes, then whispered to Isaac, "Is Miss Becky an alpha too?" Isaac's mouth twitched. "In her own territory." Becky heard him. "Correct." For a while, we let breakfast be breakfast. Majestic spilled flour on his sleeve. Becky burned the first pancake and blamed the pan. Isaac cut fruit one-handed despite my repeated side-eye. Grayson drank coffee like it was medicine. Sandra came in long enough to eat standing up, kiss Majestic's forehead, and tell Isaac that if he tore his stitches, she would sedate him with enthusiasm. It was normal. Not truly. Not completely. The courtyard beyond the window still bore the scars of the night before. The altar stone was cracked down the middle. Wolves moved slowly, carrying broken pieces of wood, scrubbing blood from stone, rebuilding what Zayden had tried to ruin. But Majestic ate pancakes, chocolate smeared at the corner of his mouth. My son was alive. So I let the morning hold. After breakfast, Carol found us in the smaller sitting room off the kitchen. She had traded her torn flowered dress for another one, because apparently even moon witches respected wardrobe consistency. Her church tote sat at her feet, stuffed with old papers, red thread, and what looked suspiciously like peppermints. Joseph followed behind her, quiet and lined with a guilt that had not vanished just because the battle was over. Carol spread a brittle parchment across the table. "The prophecy was translated wrong," she said. Every warm thing in the room cooled. Isaac's hand found the back of my chair. "Wrong how?" Carol adjusted her glasses. "Not the heart of it. The moon-born child still matters. Majestic still matters." Her eyes softened when she looked at him. "But the old tongue does not say the moon-born child." Joseph leaned closer. His face tightened. Carol tapped one faded symbol. "It says a moon-born child." Becky frowned. "As in, grammar is about to ruin my day?" "As in, Majestic was never the only one," Carol said. "Majestic stopped playing with Mr. Rory's tail." I placed a hand on his knee before fear could climb all the way into his little body. Isaac's voice dropped. "Another moonborn. Somewhere," Carol said. "Maybe hidden, maybe hunted, maybe already being used by people who know just enough prophecy to be dangerous." Grayson's expression turned hard. "Zayden's loyalists." "Could be," Joseph said. My stomach tightened. Not because I wanted another fight, because I understood suddenly and completely that saving Majestic had not closed a door, it had opened one. Black Ridge could go back to protecting only its own. Or it could become something better. Something strong enough to shelter children the world had already decided to fear. Majestic leaned into me. "Is the other kid scared?" I swallowed. "Maybe." He looked down at Mr. Rory and hugged him closer. "That's sad." "Yes," I whispered. "It is." Before anyone could answer, hurried footsteps sounded in the hall. A young border guard appeared in the doorway, mud on his boots and dried blood streaked across one sleeve. He bowed quickly to Isaac, but his eyes moved to me almost at once. "Alpha," he said, breathing hard. "We found someone at the eastern edge of the territory." Isaac straightened. "Who?" "A woman. Pregnant. Collapsed near the creek road." Sandra was already reaching for her healer's bag. The guard hesitated. Grayson noticed. "Say it." The young wolf's throat worked. "She carries the cross bloodline." The room went silent. Isaac's hand settled on my shoulder, warm over the place where his mark rested beneath my shirt. I stood before anyone could tell me to sit down. The guard looked directly at me then, confusion and urgency tangled across his face. "She keeps asking for Quinn."
Every wolf in the room looked to me. That was what alphas were for. Danger came to the border, and the pack turned toward the strongest teeth in the room. They waited for my command, for the line to be drawn, for the enemy to be named. But the woman at my border had not asked for the alpha. She had asked for Quinn. I felt my hand tighten on the back of her chair. Grayson stepped forward first, because suspicion was the language he trusted most. "It's a trap." "Maybe," I said. Quinn looked at me. There was fear in her eyes. Of course there was. She had survived Zayden Cross less than a day ago. She had watched him try to twist our son into a weapon. She had stood beneath a blood moon and refused to break. But beneath the fear was something steadier, a nurse's calm, a mother's fury, a woman who heard the word pregnant before she heard the name Cross. "I'm going," she said. Every instinct in me rose against it. No. The word burned on my tongue. My wolf pushed hard beneath my skin, already placing her behind me, already imagining every path where this became a knife aimed at her heart. Then I saw her watching me, not daring me, not begging, waiting to see whether I had learned anything. I forced my fingers to loosen. "You stay behind Sandra," I said. "Grayson takes 2 guards. No one approaches the woman until Sandra clears her." Quinn's mouth softened, just a little. That almost sounded like trust. It felt like suffering. Growth usually does. Becky made a noise behind us. "Look at you two, being emotionally developed while someone bleeds on the property." Grayson was already moving. "I'll get the guard detail." "No weapons drawn unless I give the order," I told him. His eyes narrowed. "Alpha, she's pregnant. She's Cross." I held his stare until his wolf lowered behind his eyes. "And until she threatens this pack, she is a pregnant woman on Black Ridge land." Joseph said nothing, but I felt his gaze on me. The old laws had cost us Elias. They had cost Maya her safety. They had cost Majestic 5 years of his bloodline, his home, his father's name. I would not let fear wear wisdom's face again. We found the woman just inside the Eastern Infirmary entrance, where the guards had carried her in from the creek road. Mud streaked the hem of her dress. Her dark blonde hair stuck damply to her face, and one trembling hand was locked around the curve of her stomach. The scent hit me first. Blood, rain, exhaustion, and beneath it, Cross. My wolf snarled before I could stop him. The woman heard it. Her eyes flew open, and terror flooded the room so sharply every wolf present felt it. "No," she gasped, trying to pull away from Sandra. "No, Alpha. Please, I didn't come for him." Quinn moved before I did. She stepped in front of me, not dramatically, not as a challenge, just enough to put herself in the woman's line of sight. "I'm Quinn," she said. The woman went still. Her gaze traveled over Quinn's face like she was searching for proof in her skin, her voice, the way she held herself. Then she broke. "Please," she whispered. "They said you saved the boy." Quinn's expression changed. Not softer exactly. Deeper. "What's your name?" "Nadia." Her breathing hitched. "Nadia Cross." Grayson shifted near the door. I lifted one hand without looking at him. He stopped. Nadia saw the movement anyway and flinched. Quinn noticed. "Of course she did. No one is going to touch you without permission," Quinn said. "Sandra is the healer here. I'm a nurse. We need to check you and the baby." Nadia clutched her stomach. "If she has silver eyes, they'll kill her." The room went quiet. Quinn did not look back at me. I was grateful for that. Because for one breath, alpha instinct and old terror collided inside me, hard enough to make my bones ache. Another moonborn. Carol's mistranslation had not been a warning for later. It had been a door opening now. Sandra knelt beside Nadia. "How far apart are the contractions?" Nadia shook her head. "I don't know. They started before dawn." Quinn crouched near her. "Okay, that's okay. We're going to take this one breath at a time." Nadia stared at her. "You won't let them take her?" Quinn's voice was quiet. "Not if you are her mother, and you want her safe." The woman sobbed once, then nodded. Labor made its own clock. Morning stretched into afternoon. Afternoon darkened into evening. Rain tapped against the infirmary windows, soft at first, then harder, while wolves gathered in tense knots beyond the doors. I stood at the threshold because Nadia's fear spiked whenever I came too close. That was a bitter thing. I was alpha here. This was my house, my territory, my pack. And the frightened woman carrying enemy blood trusted my human mate more than she trusted me. Maybe that was not an insult. Maybe it was the moon showing me exactly what kind of strength Black Ridge had been missing. Quinn never wavered. She washed her hands, tied back her curls, and stepped into the storm like she had been born for frightened rooms and fragile lives. She spoke low when Nadia panicked. She pressed cool cloths to her forehead. She counted breaths. She translated Sandra's healer instructions into plain human words. "You're doing good, Nadia." "I can't." "You are. It hurts. I know it does. Look at me. Breathe with me." Nadia grabbed Quinn's wrist so hard I nearly stepped forward. Quinn only covered the woman's hand with her own. "I'm right here," she said. Something in my chest twisted. I had spent years believing protection meant standing in front of everyone I loved with claws bared. Quinn protected differently. She did not always stand in front. Sometimes she knelt beside. Sometimes she gave people back their own courage and called it care. Grayson appeared at my shoulder near sunset. His voice was low. "The pack is restless. I know. They know she's cross. I know that too. If the child is moonborn, then the child is a newborn," I said. His jaw tightened. "You think that will matter to everyone?" I looked through the open doorway at Quinn. Nadia was crying again, and Quinn's warm brown hand was firm around hers. "It will matter to me." Grayson followed my gaze. For once, he had no answer. A thin cry split the room just as moonlight broke through the clouds. Every wolf in the infirmary froze. Sandra bent over the bed, her gray-streaked hair slipping loose from its pinions. Quinn leaned close to Nadia, murmuring something I could not hear. Nadia shook violently, tears streaking down her face. Then Sandra lifted the baby. A girl. Tiny. Furious. Alive. For one impossible second, relief moved through me. Then the baby opened her eyes. Silver. The room went silent in a way only wolves could make silence. Alive silence. Listening silence. Fear with teeth. One of the younger guards shifted his weight, hand moving toward the blade at his side. My growl hit the walls before he touched it. He dropped his hand instantly and lowered his head. Nadia saw anyway. With a broken sound, she curled around her daughter, trying to shield the baby with her exhausted body. "No!" she cried. "No, you can't have her! You can't!" Quinn stepped between Nadia and the room. Not between Nadia and the baby. Between the mother and everyone else. "She is not a weapon," Quinn said. No one moved. Even Sandra looked at her with something like pride. Quinn turned back to Nadia and lowered her voice. "Look at her." Nadia was shaking too hard to listen. Quinn leaned closer. "Nadia, look at her. Not the prophecy. Not the bloodline. Her." Slowly, Nadia looked down. The baby's cries had softened into tiny, breathless sounds. Her silver eyes blinked up at her mother, unfocused and shining in the moonlight. Nadia's face crumpled. "My baby," she whispered. Quinn smiled, and I felt the mate bond warm with grief and hope at once. "Yes, your baby." I stepped into the room then, slowly enough for Nadia to see every movement. Her arms tightened. I stopped several feet away. "By my word as Alpha," I said, letting the authority settle into every corner of the room. "No one takes your daughter from you. Not for her eyes. Not for her blood. Not for prophecy." Nadia stared at me as if trust was a language she had forgotten. Then her gaze shifted to Quinn. Only when Quinn nodded did Nadia let out the breath she had been holding. Sandra wrapped the baby and placed her against Nadia's chest. "Does she have a name?" Quinn asked. Nadia looked down at the little girl. Her fingers trembled as they touched the baby's cheek. "Leora," she whispered. "Her name is Leora." Before anyone could answer, shouting rose beyond the infirmary doors. Grayson turned first. One of the border guards pushed inside, rain dripping from his hair, his face hard with urgency. "We caught a man near the northern tree line," he said. "One of Cross's loyalists." My wolf rose. Quinn looked at me. The guard swallowed. He carried a message. I did not ask if it was for me. I already knew. The guard's voice dropped. "The second Moonborn dies before she belongs to Blackwood." Behind me, Nadia began to cry again. And in Quinn's eyes, I saw the moment mercy became war.
The message did not leave the room after the guard spoke it. It stayed. It settled into the walls, into the corners, into the spaces between every breath. The second Moonborn dies before she belongs to Blackwood. Nadia heard it from the bed, with her newborn daughter tucked against her chest and terror still wet on her cheeks. Leora made a tiny sound against her mother's skin, hungry and offended by the world already having an opinion about her existence. I wanted to tell Nadia it would be fine. I did not. Lying to frightened mothers was not medicine, so I washed my hands, checked Leora's breathing again, helped Sandra settle another blanket over Nadia's legs, and said the only thing I could say honestly: "We are not handing her over to anyone." Nadia looked at me like she wanted to believe me, but had run out of places to put trust. Behind me, Isaac's voice turned quiet enough to be dangerous. "Call the council." By evening, Black Ridge gathered in the council hall again. The last time I had stood in that room, wolves had debated whether I had the right to call myself Majestic's mother. They had looked at me and seen human, temporary, breakable, an inconvenience standing between a Moonborn child and Packlaw. Now some of those same faces looked at the infirmary doors like a baby might crawl out with a crown and a knife. Progress, apparently, was not a straight line. It was a staircase covered in wolves arguing. Isaac sat at the head of the room, dark and still, his alpha power held tight under his skin. Grayson stood at his right, bandaged but upright, because the man seemed personally offended by the concept of rest. Joseph sat near the elders, his lined face drawn with more than exhaustion. Becky was beside me, because of course she was. She had already whispered, "If anybody suggests throwing a newborn into the woods, I'm biting someone. I'm not a wolf, but I have teeth." I believed her. The council began exactly as badly as I expected. "She is crossblood," one elder said. "She is 2 hours old," I replied. A murmur moved through the room. Another wolf leaned forward. "Zayden's loyalists came for her already. If she remains here, every rogue left under his banner will come to Black Ridge." "They may come whether she stays or not," Grayson said. I looked at him. His expression did not change. They know she exists. They know she came here. Sending Nadia away will not erase the trail. "That does not mean we shelter them," the first elder snapped. "No," Grayson said. "It means if we shelter them, we do it with full knowledge that this increases the target on our backs." There it was. Not cruelty. Strategy. I could respect that, even while every protective part of me wanted to throw a chair. Isaac did not speak. His gaze flicked to me once, steady and unreadable to everyone else. But through the bond, I felt him, waiting, trusting. Letting me decide when my voice entered the room. A woman near the back stood. "We cannot survive another war over another Moonborn child." "Maybe another pack can take her," someone suggested. "Somewhere far from here." "And what?" Becky cut in before I could. "We FedEx the baby with a note that says, 'May contain prophecy.'" Several heads turned toward her. She lifted both hands. What? I'm just asking for logistics. Despite myself, I almost smiled. Almost. Another elder spoke, softer this time. Hide the child. Keep her existence quiet. Let Nadia remain, but no one outside trusted families should know. Carol made a low sound from her chair. Secrets rot when you build nurseries inside them. The room quieted. I thought of Maya running, Elias dying, Majestic growing up with a charm over his scent, and danger circling closer every year. I thought of Nadia's hands shaking around Leora, waiting for all of us to prove her right about monsters. Then I stood. The room shifted toward me. Not kindly, not unkindly either. Just watching. I placed both hands on the table because my knees had opinions about the day, and none of them were helpful. You are right to be afraid, I said. That surprised them. Good. Leora being here puts Black Ridge in danger. Nadia's name carries a history none of us can pretend away. Zayden's loyalists will not vanish because we ask politely, and another moonborn child means another reason for cruel people to come hunting. Grayson's eyes narrowed slightly, but he listened. I turned toward the elders. But if fear is the only thing guiding us, Zayden still gets to decide who we become. No one spoke, so I kept going. Majestic was hunted because of prophecy, because of blood, because adults looked at a child and saw power before they saw a little boy who still needed bedtime stories. My voice tightened, but I did not let it break. Maya was rejected because she was human. Elias was punished for loving her. I was questioned because I became a mother through love instead of blood. Joseph lowered his eyes. I did not soften the words. Some wounds needed air before they could heal. We keep making children pay for the fear of grown people, I said. That stops now. One of the elders frowned. And what do you propose, Quinn Monroe? I heard the test in it. Not Luna, not mate. Just my name, offered like a challenge. Fine. I had carried that name through worse rooms than this one. Allah, I said. Not charity. Not a favor that disappears when people get nervous. Allah. Isaac's attention sharpened. I looked at him, then back at the council. Heartblood sanctuary. The words came easier once I said them, like they had been waiting somewhere beneath my ribs. Any child under Black Ridge protection cannot be punished, traded, imprisoned, or taken from a loving parent because of bloodline, prophecy, species, or politics. That includes children born from enemy families, human mates, orphaned wolf children, adopted children, refugees from abusive packs, mothers carrying children other people want to use. A murmur moved through the hall, stronger this time. I spoke over it. If a child comes to our border hunted, we do not ask who their father was before we decide whether they deserve to live. If a mother comes here bleeding, we do not make her prove her baby is convenient before we help her. Becky nodded hard. Also, can we stop discussing babies like they're cursed furniture? A few wolves looked scandalized. Sandra coughed into her hand. I loved my best friend with my whole tired soul. Grayson pushed away from the wall. Sanctuary requires defense, patrol rotations, secure housing, internal screening. If this law passes, then it cannot be sentimental. It has to be enforced. I agree, I said. That stopped him. I met his gaze. Fear is not useless. It tells us where the locks need to be stronger. But it does not get to choose who we leave outside. For the first time since I'd met him, Grayson looked at me like suspicion had run into respect and did not know what to do with itself. Joseph stood slowly. Every elder turned toward him. His voice was rough when he spoke. Black Ridge lost Elias because we mistook fear for wisdom. We will not call that mistake law again. The room went still. Joseph looked at me then, and there was apology in his eyes. Not enough to erase the past. Nothing could, but enough to begin something. I support Heartblood Sanctuary, he said. A beat passed, then Isaac rose. Power rolled through the hall, not crushing, not demanding. Present. certain. My mate has spoken for the heart of this pack, he said. I stand with her. Warmth moved through me before I could guard against it. Not because he claimed me, because he had not spoken until I was done. The vote was not unanimous. Nothing worth changing ever was. But it passed. By law and by alpha word, Nadia and Leora were under Black Ridge protection. So was every child who might come after them. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I went looking for my son. I found Majestic in his room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with crayons scattered around him and Mr. Rory tucked under one arm. He was coloring a moon with a blue crayon, pressing so hard the wax had started to peel. Hey, baby. I'm coloring. I see that. He did not look up. It's for the baby. I sat beside him carefully. That's sweet. His little shoulders lifted, then fell. If there's another moon born, am I still special? There it was, the quiet fear beneath the crayons. I pulled a breath through my nose and let it out slowly. Majestic Monroe Blackwood. He peeked at me. I never loved you because you were moonborn. I loved you when you were just a sleepy little boy with applesauce in your hair. His mouth wobbled. I had applesauce in my hair? All the time. You were basically a snack with legs. A tiny laugh escaped him, but it faded fast. But everybody cared because of my eyes. Some people noticed because of your eyes, I said. I cared because you were mine. His chin tucked down. I reached for him, slow enough to let him choose. He climbed into my lap and tucked his face against my shoulder. Isaac appeared in the doorway a moment later. He must have heard enough to know not to interrupt too soon. He came in and lowered himself to the floor with us, big alpha body folding down beside crayons and dinosaur plush, like that was exactly where he belonged. You were the first person who made Black Ridge feel like family again, Isaac said. Majestic looked at him. Me? Yes, you. Even when I made everyone kneel? Isaac's mouth softened. Especially after. Families do not stop being families because someone gets scared. Majestic thought about that. Then he crawled out of my lap, went to his little trunk, and pulled out a soft green blanket with tiny moons stitched along the edge. Not Mr. Rory, I noticed. So did Isaac. Majestic hugged the blanket once before holding it out. Leora can have this, because babies get cold. My throat tightened. That is very kind. He gave me a serious look. Not Mr. Rory, though. She might drool on him. Excellent boundary. Later, when Majestic placed the blanket beside Leora in the infirmary, Nadia cried without making a sound. She touched the edge of the fabric like it was more than thread. Maybe it was. Maybe sanctuary always started that way. One blanket, one law, one frightened mother realizing the door had not closed. When we returned to the courtyard, the pack had gathered beneath the moon. I thought they were waiting for Isaac, but as I stepped beside him, the first wolf lowered his head. Then another. Then another. The word moved through them, low and certain. Luna. My hand tightened around Majestic's. Isaac looked at me, quiet and patient. Waiting. Again. But I had not agreed to that name yet. The word followed me all the way back inside. Luna. It clung to the halls, slipped beneath doors, and settled somewhere between my ribs like it had already unpacked a suitcase. I did not hate the sound of it. That was the problem. I should have. A few weeks ago, if someone had told me a pack of werewolves would bow their heads and call me Luna, I would have asked what kind of medication they were on, and whether it came in chewable form. But now? Now Black Ridge had Majestic's laughter in its kitchen. Nadia's baby sleeping safely in its infirmary. Isaac's hand reaching for mine without closing around it like a cage. Still, wanting to belong was not the same as agreeing to disappear. So when Isaac found me later in the library, I was waiting. I stood near the window with my arms folded, watching moonlight silver the damaged courtyard stones below. He came in quietly for a man built like a threat. You left before the pack finished gathering, he said. I noticed. They meant it. I know. His amber eyes stayed on me. patient, careful. And I love you, I said. The words changed his face every time. Not dramatically. Isaac Blackwood was not a man who fell apart where people could see him, but something in him always softened when I said it, like a door opening in a house he thought had burned down. I love you too, he said. That does not mean I become Luna because your wolf picked me. His jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. Good. I needed that. I will not be a symbol, Isaac. I will not stand beside you in a pretty dress while men in old chairs make decisions about children and mothers and human mates, like we are footnotes with feelings. A quiet breath moved through him. I would never ask that of you. Maybe not intentionally. I turned from the window to face him fully. But this pack has traditions older than both of us. Some of them are beautiful. Some of them are just fear with better manners. His mouth twitched faintly. That sounds like something you have been waiting to say. I have a list. Of course you do. It has headings. That almost earned me a smile. I stepped closer, my heart beating too hard for someone pretending she had this under complete control. If Black Ridge wants me as Luna, then the title has to mean work, authority, protection that does not depend on whether the alpha is in the room. Isaac's eyes warmed, but he stayed silent. So I gave him my terms. A permanent children's clinic here at Black Ridge, not a converted guest room. Not whatever corner Sandra can spare between wolf bites and alpha nonsense. A real clinic. Done. I'm not finished. He inclined his head. Then keep going. Trauma care for shifted children. Majestic is not the only child who has been scared by his own wolf. There need to be sessions, safe rooms, trained adults who know the difference between discipline and terror. Done. Legal protection for human mates. His expression grew still. I kept my voice even. No more Mayas being treated like weaknesses. No more families deciding love is acceptable only when the bloodline approves. Done, he said, rougher this time. Recognition of adoptive and heart-blood motherhood. Written into law. Not tolerated. Recognized. Done. Sanctuary protections for children from enemy bloodlines. Heart-blood sanctuary cannot just be a pretty speech everyone clapped for because emotions were high. No, he agreed. It will be law. I want a Luna council seat in matters involving children, family law, human mates, and sanctuary rights. You will have it. And one rule above all the others. My voice thinned, but it did not break. No child may be separated from a loving parent because of prophecy or politics. Isaac looked at me for a long moment. Then he crossed the space between us slowly, giving me every chance to step back. I did not. He stopped close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. The bond between us hummed, steady and alive. Then we build it together, he said. Not my pack with you inside it. Our pack, with your hand on the foundation. I hated how much that made me want to cry. So, naturally, I said, that better include office space. His mouth finally curved. With headings? Don't mock my headings, they're excellent. By moonrise, word had spread. Not of my acceptance. Of my conditions. Some wolves looked relieved, some looked uncertain. A few looked like they had swallowed gravel and were trying to call it dinner. That was fine. Nobody had promised me universal approval. I was a black woman, a human, a nurse, an adoptive mother, and apparently the moon's favorite source of administrative reform. I had survived hospital boards. Wolves could get in line. The ceremony took place in the courtyard, where the cracked altar still stood beneath the open sky. No blood moon hung above us now, no red light, no screaming prophecy. Just a clean white moon, and a night wind soft enough to feel like a breath being released. Majestic stood on my left, his small hand tucked in mine. He wore his nicest shirt. The one sleeve was already wrinkled, and Mr. Rory's head poked out from under his arm. Isaac stood on my right, not in front of me, beside me. Nadia watched from the edge of the gathering, with Leora wrapped against her chest in Majestic's green blanket. The baby slept through all of it. which frankly showed excellent priorities. Carol stood near Sandra, whispering something under her breath that sounded half prayer, half warning to the moon not to start any foolishness tonight. Joseph stepped forward first. "Quinn Monroe," he said, voice carrying over the courtyard. "Black Ridge asks whether you will stand as Luna under your own name, your own will, and your own terms." I squeezed Majestic's hand. Then I looked out at the pack. So many faces. Some familiar now. Some still guarded. All waiting. "I was not born wolf," I said. "I will not pretend I was. But I know what it means to protect children, to survive grief, to love when staying is hard." My throat tightened. If that has a place here, then I will serve. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Isaac's voice came beside me, low and certain. "Black Ridge accepts Quinn Monroe as Luna." One by one, the wolves lowered their heads again. This time, I did not step back from the word. "Luna," they said. Majestic looked up at me with huge silver eyes. "That's you, Mama." I breathed through the ache in my chest. "Yeah, baby. I think it is." Afterward, people came forward slowly. Some offered vows. Some offered awkward nods. Becky hugged me so hard she nearly crushed my ribs and whispered, "You are terrifying in the sexiest civic leadership way." "I'm telling Grayson you said civic. He likes vocabulary. I can tell." Across the courtyard, Grayson pretended not to hear, which meant he absolutely heard. I was still laughing when the nausea rolled through me. Not dramatic, not enough to knock me over. Just a sudden, deep turn in my stomach that made the courtyard tilt for half a second. Sandra's eyes sharpened from 10 feet away. Healers were deeply inconvenient people. She caught my elbow gently. "Come with me." "I'm fine." "Of course. Come be fine in the infirmary." I glanced toward Isaac, but Sandra shook her head once. "Privately first." That got my attention. 10 minutes later, I sat on the edge of an infirmary bed while Sandra checked my pulse, asked too many questions, and smiled before she had any right to. "What?" I demanded. Her smile deepened. My heart stopped behaving like a professional organ. "Sandra." "Quinn," she said softly, "you are pregnant." The room went quiet. Not empty quiet. Full quiet. I pressed one hand to my stomach before I realized I had moved. Pregnant. The word opened inside me slowly, like light slipping under a door. Joy came first, sharp enough to hurt. Then fear. Then disbelief. Then tenderness so fierce I had to close my eyes. "I thought it was stress," I whispered. "You have had plenty of that too." A laugh broke out of me and turned into something dangerously close to a sob. Sandra squeezed my hand. "Take your time." But there was only one person I wanted. I found Isaac in the hallway outside the council room. He turned before I said his name, already feeling me through the bond. His face changed instantly. "What happened?" "I'm okay." That is not an answer. No, but it is a starting point. He came toward me, fear tightening every line of him. I took his hand and placed it over my stomach. He went utterly still. For once, Isaac Blackwood had no words. His amber eyes searched mine, and through the bond, I felt it all hit him. Wonder, terror, love, old grief rising like a ghost from Elias's grave, the unbearable knowledge that love could be born fragile. "We're having a baby," I said. His throat worked. He stopped. "I know." His hand trembled against me. I covered it with mine. "You are already a father, Isaac. This baby just gets to know it sooner." Something broke open in his expression. He leaned his forehead to mine, breathing like the world had become too large to hold. Later, we told Majestic in our room, where he was supposed to be asleep, and absolutely was not. He listened very seriously, sitting cross-legged between us. Then his small voice asked, "Will the baby be your real baby?" Oh, my heart. I pulled him into my lap so fast he squeaked. "You are my real baby. I said, holding his face between my hands. You made me a mother first. This baby is more love, not different love. His eyes filled. Promise? On every pancake I've ever made. That's a lot. It is. Isaac sat beside us, one arm wrapping carefully around both of us. Majestic looked down at my stomach. Can I say hi? Of course. He placed his little hand there with the gentlest touch. His silver eyes began to glow. Not bright, not frightening. Soft as moonlight through curtains. She likes the moon, he whispered, but not the red one. Isaac's gaze snapped to mine. My breath caught. A girl? I asked softly. Majestic nodded, listening to something we could not hear. Her name sounds like singing. By the time the quiet moon came, Black Ridge had learned how to breathe again. Not perfectly. Wolves were stubborn creatures. Healing apparently offended their pride. But the courtyard stones had been repaired. The cracked altar was now wrapped in moonvine instead of blood memory. The east wing, which once smelled like old wood and unused rooms, had become the children's clinic. My clinic. There were little handprints painted along one wall, a basket of stuffed animals near the exam table, and a sign Majestic had made in blue marker that read, "No scary prophecy talking in here." He had underlined no 3 times. I kept it up. Human mates came through the doors now without lowering their eyes. Shifted children came in shaking and left knowing they were not monsters. Nadia lived in the southern guest house with Leora, who had grown into a round-cheeked baby with silver eyes and a deeply judgmental stare. Heartblood Sanctuary was no longer a speech. It was law, and Majestic took his role as future big brother more seriously than most elders took council meetings. She won't know pack rules, he told Isaac one afternoon while they trained in the grass. So I have to teach her. Isaac crouched in front of him, his dark hair falling over his brow. Which rules? Majestic counted on his fingers. No biting Mama. No touching Mr. Rory without asking. Pancakes are for breakfast, but sometimes dinner if Mama is tired, and babies can't go near Grayson until they learn he's not mad. That's just his face. From across the yard, Grayson said, I heard that. Majestic leaned closer to Isaac and whispered very loudly, See? I laughed so hard Ariella kicked me beneath my ribs. The baby inside me had opinions about everything now. Food, sleep. Isaac's voice. Majestic's bedtime songs. She especially enjoyed pressing one tiny foot into my side whenever the council ran long, which proved she was already my daughter. A few days before the full moon, I found Becky in the workshop doorway, arms folded, watching Grayson carve the side of a cradle. Tiny moons curved along the wood. Becky looked delighted in the dangerous way that meant someone was about to suffer. Isaac asked for a cradle, she said. He did not ask you to whittle emotional vulnerability into the wood. Grayson did not look up. Go away, Lawson. No, I live here now emotionally. That is unfortunate for the territory. She leaned against the doorframe. You put little moons on it. It needed detail. It needed a mattress. His jaw tightened. The tips of his ears turned red. I backed away before either of them noticed me smiling. Some things were best left to grow without a nurse hovering over them. The full moon rose soft and round over Black Ridge. Not a blood moon, not a war moon. A quiet one. I was in the nursery, folding tiny blankets I'd already folded twice, when the first contraction wrapped low around my body. I stopped, with one hand pressed to the cradle. Majestic looked up from the rug, where he was teaching Mr. Rory how to be emotionally prepared. Mama? I took a slow breath. Then another. Isaac appeared in the doorway before I called him, his amber eyes already bright with worry through the bond. It's time, I said. For a moment my alpha forgot every language he knew. Then Becky pushed past him with a bag over her shoulder. Move, Daddy Wolf. We practiced this. I can carry her, Isaac said. I can walk, I told him. You are in pain. Yes, and still somehow in charge of my legs. Sandra met us in the infirmary with calm hands and a knowing smile. Carol followed, muttering prayers and moon witch words under her breath like she was negotiating directly with heaven. Labor was not graceful. No woman who has done it should be expected to pretend otherwise. It was sweat and pressure and breath that kept slipping away from me. It was Becky holding my hand and threatening Isaac every time his alpha energy filled the room too thick. "If you alpha command this labor room," she warned, "I will personally introduce your kneecaps to a chair." Isaac looked at me. For once, he did not command. He knelt beside the bed and took my other hand like it was something precious. "Tell me what you need," he said. I looked at the man who had once arrived at my door to claim blood, and now sat beside me waiting for permission to help. "Stay," I whispered. His thumb brushed over my knuckles. Always. So he stayed. He breathed with me, counted with Sandra, pressed cool cloths to my neck when Becky needed both hands to argue with Carol about whether moon chants counted as medical assistance. He did not try to take over. He did not make my pain about his fear. He simply remained. Just before dawn, our daughter entered the world beneath the quiet moon. Her cry was small at first, then furious enough to make Sandra laugh. "That's a healthy opinion," Sandra said. She placed the baby against my chest, and everything inside me went still. Warm brown skin, soft dark curls, Isaac's amber eyes blinking up at me. Not silver. Carol leaned close, tears shining in her eyes. "This one is not prophecy, baby," she whispered. "This one is peace." Isaac's hand trembled as he touched the baby's tiny back. "Our daughter," he said, voice rough. "Ariella," I whispered. His gaze lifted to mine. "Ariella Maya Monroe Blackwood." Maya's name settled between us, not as grief this time, but as remembrance, as honor, as love carried forward instead of buried. Isaac bowed his head until his forehead touched mine. "She would have loved that," he said. Majestic came in after sunrise, freshly washed, nervous, and holding Mr. Rory like emotional backup. Isaac lifted him carefully onto the bed beside me. Majestic stared down at his sister with wide silver eyes. "Hi, Ariella," he whispered. "I'm Majestic. That's a big name, so you can call me Mage if you want." Ariella yawned. He looked impressed. "She likes me." "She does," I said. His smile wobbled a little. "I'm still your baby too, right?" "Oh, my sweet boy." I pulled him close and kissed his forehead. "Always. You were the first person who taught my heart how big it could get." Isaac's arm came around us, careful and strong. "And you taught mine how to come home," he said. Outside, the pack began to howl. Not in warning, not in grief, in welcome. Nadia stood near the window with Leora in her arms, both of them safe beneath Blackridge's roof. For a moment, Leora's silver eyes turned toward the mountains, bright and watchful. Carol noticed. So did I. But Isaac's hand covered mine. Majestic tucked himself against my side, and Ariella slept warm against my heart. Tomorrow there would be laws to defend, children to protect, a future still unfolding beyond the ridge. But for now, under the quiet moon, love kept giving back.
Stay in my arms when the morning touches your face. I forget every heavy thing. Even silence sounds like music when you breathe next to me. Stay in my arms tonight. Let the world fade slowly. Your name feels like a prayer on my lips, like heaven finally knows me. Fears grow weaker, like shadows losing shape, and every dream I bury deep inside again. Hold me close when the nights turn cold, when my strength feels out of place. Your touch is the only language that calms the storm in me. Stay in my arms tonight, don't let go too early. I would trade every breath I own just to keep you near me. So stay, even after the music fades.